Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. Well, joining me today, it's journalist and broadcaster Danny Kelly, smile a little, broadcaster and author Christine Hamilton, and also TV personality Lizzie Cundy. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 3 o'clock. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. The Vatican has announced the death of Pope Benedict XVI at the age of 95. Pope Benedict was the head of the Catholic Church from 2005 until his resignation in 2013. He became the first pontiff to step down from the role in 600 years due to ill health and old age. Pope Francis will lead his funeral on the 5th of January in St Peter's Square. Well, Associate Editor at the Catholic Herald, Simon Caldwell, spoke to GB News about Pope Benedict's legacy.
Benedict wasn't going to allow people to come in with all kinds of novelties and revolutionary reforms and this kind of thing. He said, no, this is a sacred deposit. This is something which this is what we hold to be true. And it wasn't that he was against homosexuals or against women or anything like that. He was upholding 2,000 years of Christian teaching, and said this is what it means to be a Christian.
4 Lionesses who won the Women's Euro 2022 are among those recognised in the New Year Honours List, the first to be issued by King Charles. Captain Leah Williamson has been made an OBE, whilst Lucy Bronze, Beth Mead and Ellen White have been given MBEs. GB News presenter Anne Diamond has received an OBE for her services to public health and charity. And Queen guitarist and animal welfare campaigner Brian May has received a knighthood.
It's a nice surprise to have this honour put upon me. I also think it comes with a responsibility to behave. I guess to continue to behave in a way which benefits the country and the rest of the population here and the world as well. But I take this responsibility quite seriously anyway.
The Prime Minister has admitted the last 12 months have been tough and warned the UK's problems won't go away next year. In his New Year message to the UK, Rishi Sunak said the government will continue to tackle the NHS backlog and illegal immigration. He also said King Charles's coronation will bring the country together.
I'm not going to pretend that all our problems will go away in the new year. But 2023 will give us an opportunity to showcase the very best of Britain on the world stage. In this historic year of His Majesty the King's coronation, we will come together with pride in everything that makes this country great. Yes, 2023 will have its challenges, but the government I lead is putting your priorities first.
The government has confirmed anyone travelling directly from China to England from the 5th of January must show a negative COVID test before departure. There are no direct flights from China to Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland, but the government says it will work with devolved administrations to ensure measures are implemented there. It's amid concerns about surging COVID cases in China following an easing of restrictions. France, Spain and the US have also introduced similar rules. Russia's defence ministry says 82 of their soldiers who were captured by Ukraine have been released in the latest prisoner exchange between the two sides. Ukraine is yet to comment on their claims. Meanwhile, the mayor of Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, says 10 explosions have been heard in the city after air raid sirens were sounded in every region across the country. It's confirmed at least one person has been killed. And New Year's celebrations have already begun, with New Zealand and Australia welcoming in 2023. In Sydney, the New Year was rung in with thousands of fireworks launched from the iconic Harbour Bridge and Sydney Opera House. And for the first time, the dazzling display featured a rainbow waterfall for inclusivity. You're up to date on GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now let's return to Nana.
Well, good afternoon to you and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on New Year's Eve. I'm Nana Akua. My panel and I are here to bring you the latest news, discussion and topics to sink our teeth into. Although my teeth are getting really soft, I don't know what's happening to me. Here's what's coming up today. Now, Pope Benedict XVI has died at the age of 95. The Vatican has announced he was the first pope to stand down in centuries in 2013 due to health problems. His funeral is due to take place on Thursday, the 5th of January, and tributes have been pouring in from all over the world. Later, I'll get the thoughts of the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. Rowan Williams. COVID, yes, it's back. Travel checks are returning to these shores on the 5th of January after the government's announced travellers arriving from China will have to provide evidence of a negative COVID test before boarding their plane. Now, the US, Italy and Spain have already imposed testing restrictions. King Charles has veiled his very first New Year's honours list. There are 1,107 recipients of the main list, 50% of whom are women, including our very own Anne Diamond, who's received an OBE. We'll be talking to one of the unsung heroes on the honours list at 3:30. That's on the way in the next hour. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. As ever, email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. So we start this show on quite a sombre note today with the passing of former Pope Benedict XVI at the age of 95. As a cardinal charged with enforcing doctrinal purity, Benedict was given the nickname God's Rottweiler for his uncompromising views. And he was the first pope to step down in centuries because of ailing health in 2013. Tributes have been pouring in from around the world and people have gathered in St. Peter's Square in Rome to pay their respects. Joining me now to discuss this is Madeleine Page, a spokesperson at Catholic Voices. Madeleine, thank you very much for joining me. Now, how do you feel with regard to this? I mean, Pope Benedict, he was quite ill for some time. He has passed away.
It's a very sad moment for the church. He's done very well. He's 95. And he's had a great impact on many, many Catholics, as we've seen in all the tributes that have come in. So it's a very sad moment. It's a moment when we can all unite in prayer for him, as our Cardinal was saying earlier today as well. It's a sad moment, but one when we can hopefully reflect and use his legacy now to move forward.
Now, what did he mean to the Catholic community?
He was a great figure. For me, personally, he's worked really hard to restore a greater respect, awe and dignity to our Catholic worship. He did this in particular by more widely permitting the traditional form of the Mass. And this has helped me personally to develop a deeper understanding of my faith and a love of God. So that's something that I know myself and many other Catholics will be very grateful for. And he's also been a real humble and showed great servant leadership. And this can be seen even in his retirement as Pope, when he had that recognition that he was no longer fit to serve, that he knew that there were a lot of changes that needed to be made in the church, and that recognition he wasn't the man for the job. So to step back and allow somebody else to do that, I think is a real humble thing that we can all learn from as well.
And I should imagine that the service then will be, I imagine, they said on the 5th of January, assuming there'll be lots of preparations and things that are taking place. How will you commemorate him?
It's a great question. I don't think I've been able to give much thought to it yet. I would love to be able to watch the funeral online. I don't think I'm going to be able to get to Rome, unfortunately. So I definitely would like to watch it online, and I'll be praying for him. It's a great tradition of our faith that we pray for the dead, and we ask that they receive the mercy and love of God that we all need as human beings. So I'll be doing that as well.
And of course, the world will be watching. In your view, how have you, because if you look at the way faith is these days, it seems that the Catholic community seems to be shrinking. For you, how do you keep with your faith? Because there's been a lot of people being put off by the church, and a lot of things have been going on within it. And what keeps you with your faith?
I think knowing that it's the truth, that what I and my friends and the whole Catholic community stand by, I really believe that is the truth that we are living, be it both in terms of the teachings of the church and then also with our faith. And I'm really privileged to have some amazing Catholic friends and be part of a really wonderful traditional Catholic community that really helps support each other. I'm not sure I would agree that it's diminishing. I think in some ways it may appear like that, but actually what we've seen has been a greater move towards what I would say is sort of authentic Catholicism, especially through COVID and through some restrictions that we experienced on our worship. I think it's really meant that for many of us, we've become even stronger in that seeing something or the possibility of something being taken away. It's, they say you don't know how much you love something until it's gone. And I think that's something that we experienced very profoundly over the last couple of years. So that's definitely, certainly for me anyway, made me want to not waste any opportunity.
He was an incredible man really, and he was quite ill for quite some time. Did this come as a surprise to the community? I mean, he's very old as well.
I don't think it was a surprise. Obviously, it's always a matter of when, not if. I think, Pope Francis said just on, I think it was on Wednesday, asking us to pray for him and that he really wasn't in a good state of health. So I don't think it's, as you say, he was an elderly man. I don't think it comes as a surprise. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't, it's not felt anymore deeply by the church. And I know his loss will be felt by many for many different reasons. And it wasn't that long ago that he was here in the UK. He made the first ever state papal visit back in 2010. The streets of London were filled with Catholics welcoming him. So I think for many people as well, that loss will be felt knowing that he was here only 12 years ago.
Madeleine, for you then, obviously this man has left an incredible legacy. For you, what does your faith mean to you personally?
For me, it's my whole identity. It's my way of being. My faith sort of dictates how I live my life, the choices that I make, and the way that I strive to sort of interact with other people. We're called to be to love Christ and to love others as Christ loved us. So that flows through in hopefully in the choices that I make, in the way that I advocate for people from conception right the way through to natural death, for example. The way in which we speak to and help the vulnerable, the poor, the sick. I think it's really how we as society should flourish if we live an authentic Catholic life.
Well, Madeleine, listen, it's been very lovely to talk to you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. That's Madeleine Page. She's a spokesperson for the Catholic Voices. Thank you so much. If you just joined me, welcome on board. This is a GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, on the way, Rishi Sunak has performed a U-turn, what a surprise, by imposing COVID checks on those travelling into the UK from China following COVID cases, which continue to surge there. We'll be discussing that next, but first, let's take a look at the weather.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking mostly cloudy with outbreaks of rain, but drier and brighter in the northwest. Here's the details. It will be cold and rather cloudy across northern Scotland this afternoon. There will be some sunny spells at times, but also scattered wintry showers, bringing snow to higher ground. The weather over Northern Ireland will be mostly dry, with plenty of sunny spells developing. As we head into the afternoon, winds will be falling light. It will remain rather cloudy across northwest England, with limited sunny spells here. There will also be some patchy rain or showers at times too. It will be very cloudy across Wales, with cloud low enough to bring hill fog at times. There will be outbreaks of locally heavy rain, with the driest conditions in the east. It will be overcast in the East Midlands this afternoon with prolonged, at times heavy rain for all areas. It will be rather windy with strong gusts, feeling mild for this time of year. East Anglia will be cloudy throughout the afternoon with prolonged spells of locally heavy rain throughout. There will be some drier and brighter spells, but they will be limited. It'll be a windy afternoon across southern England, especially along the coast. It will be cloudy here with spells of locally heavy rain edging eastwards. Further spells of rain across southern areas while remaining cold in the north with wintry showers over northern Scotland. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 19 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's New Year's Eve. Yeah! Yes. So from January the 5th, travellers arriving in the UK from China will have to prove a negative COVID test before flying. Now, the move by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak comes after similar moves were made by the US, France and India after months of lockdowns. China is due to open its borders again on the 8th of January. Health Secretary Steve Barclay said that the UK was taking a balanced and precautionary approach, describing the measures as temporary, whilst officials assess the latest COVID-19 data. So, to discuss the merits of these measures, I'm joined by Professor Angus Dalgleish, Professor of Oncology at St George's Hospital School in London. Thank you very much for joining us. Right, so do you think the government are doing the right thing?
Yes, I do. I'd like to point out that from a medical point of view, there's probably not a great need to do this initially. But I think there's a lot more than the medical aspects to this. I think there's the overriding thing here, I think, is political. China basically covered up everything about this. They covered up the very instance, the very existence. They covered up the source of the virus when it's clear to many of us that it had come from the laboratory. And they let it escape, basically, out of China. When the WHO had previously said there's no way it could get out of China if there's a pandemic, everything would be in place to prevent it. And none of that came true. And I just feel we've been punished for 3 years by basically the carelessness and lies. And I don't think we should allow them to get away with it. So I think having some kind of restriction here, it sends a political message. You can't just say, we're opening up now, we're going to let our 2.5 million infected people out and they can go and infect you all again. I think there has to be, you cannot get away with that. So that's why I actually support them having the testing. And then there's a couple of knock-on effects of this, is that if it's true, well, it's reported it's true, that over half one of the planes from China, that everybody, half of them were infected with COVID, then it is likely in this population that's been sort of locked down, poor health, not been able to exercise, and all these other things, that they're going to get ill eventually. And can we really afford to have any more demands on our health service when you can't get into hospital even if you're dying? So to have a necessary...
It's not funny, but it is, isn't it?
These cases is the point. And then there's another knock-on point, which I do think needs to be borne in mind, is that there are several studies now showing that people who've had booster vaccines are more likely to get other infections. It makes them more susceptible to other viruses. So that's another reason why I really don't want another group of people infected coming into the country at the present time. And bear in mind, too, that even though you have a negative COVID test when you get on the plane, there's many, many cases where people have been negative getting onto the plane and positive getting off. So we are going to have this excess exposure.
Well, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, the NHS can't exactly cope with even us, so forget anybody else. And there is the case of things like long COVID, which have shown to be quite a drain on the health services because people are ill, and also a drain on the work environment because people aren't going to work. I mean, but they've said that the strain is Omicron, which is one that we've had here before. But we can be reinfected. Can we be reinfected with Omicron, or is it being reinfected with different variants of COVID that is actually happening?
Well, we hear of people who've been infected with COVID 2 or 3 times, and they've had it, and they're probably different strains. Certainly, the Omicron was much more infectious, but much less of a problem medically. It wasn't going to send you to hospital, or you weren't going to die from it unless you had lots of other underlying conditions. And so it is likely that the other variants that we'll be exposed to will be even less dangerous, but they will be infectious. And, these viruses compete. COVID competes with flu, it competes with the common cold, and we've got an awful lot of people now, and I was one of them recently, who had a really bad cold because I hadn't been exposed to it for 2 or 3 years because the COVID out-competed it, and colleagues have had very bad flu. So I think the actual COVID will be the so-called new Omicrons that we might get exposed to in the future will probably be the least of our worries. The flu and the cold seem to be more serious with regards to causing illness.
Is it just because we are now searching for different variants of this disease or this virus that we're now saying, oh, there's this variant and that variant? I mean, is it not almost like the common cold, where there are lots of different types of it, and if we were to start testing for the variants of the common cold, we would find the same thing?
Oh, you'd find many variants of the common cold. I mean, they're not all. Common cold isn't always caused by the same type of virus, let alone the same strain or variant. So, yeah, I don't believe that we should be listening to Sage and these other people, what I call these doom monsters, who are basically always looking for the very worst scenario. And now we know that in the modelling, which caused the first lockdown, they only presented what was the very first worst scenario, and therefore the one that was probably the least likely, on which the ministers and everybody acted and locked us all down and caused this incredible chaos and economic collapse that we're experiencing. So I do think everything needs to be brought into perspective. And my number one reason for supporting them for China is China cannot just decide she's going to let everybody out of her country and come here and infect us without us having some regulation. If she'd done her job properly in Wuhan when the virus first escaped and infected the people, I mean, she lied about everything. They said for ages, don't worry, it does not travel from human to human. It can only come from a bat to human, so it does not spread. When it was obvious to anybody that it was being spread just like the flu, coughs and colds, etc. But the people were going down. It was very bad. And they lied to us. Had they admitted and they're not corrupted the WHO, which is, I think, was the real Achilles heel. The WHO, if it had been free to operate like it did in SARS and MERS, it would never have escaped. And the whole thing would have been locked down and contained. But the WHO severely chastised China over the way they handled this. So instead of China taking note and actually being a good citizen, as it were, when the next one came up and doing what it's told, it had corrupted the WHO by lobbying for a non-medical, a very suppliant head, which is Tedros G, I call him. And he basically listened to them and did not alert the world when he should have, and it should never have come out of China. And China cannot just walk away and not be held to account for this. And it's one of the reasons why I think you have to instill, say, if you come into our country, you're going to have a test first.
Well, Angus, thank you very much for that. But very briefly, though, really quickly, because we've got about 10 seconds, do you think that this is a man-made virus, or like a virus that's been boosted, or do you think that it was something that it was natural, that it escaped from an animal?
Oh, when the backbone of the virus came from a bat, there's no doubt about it. But the bats were living over 1,000 miles away, and they were brought to the laboratory for research, and they had lots of viruses on. And it's well known that they isolated lots of bat coronaviruses from these things, and so they had about 600 at least. And then they were engineering them to make them more infectious to human cells.
Oh, right. So they messed around a bit.
Do that, it's eventually going to escape. I mean,
Angus, listen, we've got to go, but thank you for that.
Possible.
Angus, thank you for that. We're going to have a long chat about this at some point. Well, I'll take you for coffee, Angus, sometime. It's Angus Dalgleish. He's just all about COVID. Well, let's speak to my panel, Danny, Christine and Lizzie. Right, I'm going to start with you, Lizzie. You're right here. What do you think about that? I mean, I say reparations, frankly. I want reparations from China about this.
If China just suddenly want to open up, I just think we should let them in. No. I don't want to get another variant. I don't want to have another lockdown and all that panic. And look what it did to our economy and the mental health, you know, what it did to schooling. We've got a real mental health epidemic from COVID.
It's only Omicron. I mean, it's only Omicron, Christine. Apparently, we've had that before.
Well, it was so refreshing listening to an expert and to be able to agree with everything he said. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Yes, of course we should. And I'll tell you what we should do. We should test them all. And because of what the professor said about they get on the plane without it and they get off it with, test them when they get on and test them when they get off and make them pay for the test. There's no reason why we should pay for these tests. Either the Chinese government should pay for them or the individual traveller. And I agree, you know, testing may not have any real effect, etc., but that's not the point. It's the principle. They have behaved so disgracefully. I don't believe a word of what the Chinese say, so let's make them pay.
What about quarantine, though? Maybe they should be quarantined and then they can come in. They can pay for the hotels.
Put them in where the asylum seekers are.
The asylum seekers are taking up
all the hotels. There's no
beds.
There's no room left.
I think the professor is overstating the significance, the political significance, because President Xi, there's 1.4 billion people in China, and he's had them under more or less house arrest for the last 3 years with his COVID zero policy. So the professor thinks this is punitive. President Xi doesn't give a damn about a few thousand Chinese having their COVID swabs. He doesn't care about that. That's just irrelevant to him. Everything else, I sort of agreed with him. But why the Chinese public are being punished? They've been under lock and key for 3 years with this crazy COVID zero policy, and now when the world opens up to them, we're punishing them personally.
Well,
yeah, but
it's a little test. Where
what is wrong with having a test to make sure that you haven't got a virus?
You should apply that to everybody.
Have you called an ambulance recently?
No.
Have you tried to go to Q&A&E?
Yeah. There are 31 ambulances.
What you need to consider is that, fair enough, but if our health service will become inundated, it'd be worse than it already is.
And you know, at New Year, 31 ambulances outside a hospital with dying patients not being able to get seen. We cannot do this. We really can't. And I'm sorry, China are responsible. And I'm sorry,
yes, it's Omicron.
So
we can't. But it's Omicron.
They may have different strains and variants. We don't know.
Well, no, that's speculation.
We don't know. But we don't know.
Well, we can't afford a single foreigner having to take advantage of our NHS. We simply can't, for reasons that's been stated, because we haven't got enough for ourselves. So if there's any chance of keeping anybody out who might have COVID and end up in intensive care, let's try.
Or maybe they should have some, if they are going to come, there should be proper health insurance, by which they'd have to pay. But then the point is there's nobody who can actually take care of these people, because we can't even take care of people in this country. Omicron isn't as deadly.
It's not the fault. It's not the fault of the individual Chinese. Of course it's not. But we can't get to President Xi.
He doesn't give a damn.
How do you know he doesn't give a damn?
Because the professor said he doesn't give a damn about what the World Health Organisation said.
I give a damn about our people, though, and our country, and our NHS is on its knees. We can't afford.
Right, it is.
OK, and we really can't. And it's going to be the responsibility of the airlines now to do all the checking on all of that. That's, as well.
That's why I think the travellers should pay.
I want reparations, frankly, for this COVID thing.
I'm going with Christine. Stop all foreigners coming in.
No, that's not. No.
Not quite what I said. That's not quite what I said.
Did not say that.
I know she did.
Hold on. But let me just clarify what Christine's saying.
We cannot afford any foreigners coming to use our NHS because we haven't got enough capacity for ourselves. That's what I said.
Exactly.
What if they pay?
Oh, if they pay, that's well.
Everything the professor said, I totally agree with.
Yeah.
And I think it's fantastic.
Well, look, to be honest, I mean, look, from my view, in my perspective, I just think that actually this virus came from China. They lied about how bad it was and, that it couldn't pass from human to human and things like that. As a result, travel wasn't suspended in the way it was, although America did do that. I don't know how much difference it would have made, but the bottom line is I think that we should be asking China for reparations.
Exactly.
Because it's cost us all a fortune. We ended up buying PPE from China to make up, and they were the only ones that had anything left.
Yes.
And so in the end, they profited heavily from this virus.
They have a lot to be responsible for. I'm angry at China for
it. It's all apparently piled up.
I really am. We're still trying to recover. We're still in this lockdown crisis with everything that's going on.
Good luck trying to get a few quid off President Xi. You ain't got a chance.
We'll send you in.
Yes.
Send the heavies.
Danny will do
heavies.
Well, I look like a Buddha. You may recognise me.
Christine.
No, I was only going to say that all this PPE that we paid for and then wasn't used is now allegedly in Baroness Moan's backyard.
Well, we don't know that.
Allegedly.
That's all under investigation, so we won't go there with that one. But so final thought to you, Danny. We'll give it to you, Buddha. What do you think?
No, can't call him.
Well, that's what he said. He said he looked.
No, because I've got a great restaurant in Leamington where there's a Buddha and he looks just like me, or I look just like him. Sorry, what was the question?
Where's the model?
I think we've had enough. Well, if you just joined us, welcome aboard. This is GB News live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It is fast approaching 33 minutes after 5. On the way, Queen guitarist Brian May, and 3 lionesses are among those on this year's honours list. But we have a very special guest next who's also set to receive a CBE. We'll have that next, but first let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. It's 3:33. Good afternoon. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. The Vatican has announced the death of Pope Benedict XVI at the age of 95. Pope Benedict was the head of the Catholic Church from 2005 until his resignation in 2013. He became the first pontiff to step down from the role in 600 years due to old age and ill health. Pope Francis will lead his funeral on the 5th of January in St. Peter's Square. 4 Lionesses who won the Women's Euro 2022 are among those recognised in the New Year Honours List, the first to be issued by King Charles. Captain Leah Williamson has been made an OBE, while her teammates Lucy Bronze, Beth Mead and Ellen White have been given MBEs. GB News' Anne Diamond has also received an OBE for services to public health and charity. And Queen guitarist Brian May has received a knighthood. The government has confirmed anyone travelling directly from China to England from the 5th of January must show a negative COVID test before their departure. There are no direct flights from China to Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland, but the government says it will work with the devolved nations to ensure measures are implemented there as well. It's amid concerns about surging cases in China following an easing of restrictions. France, Spain and the US have also introduced similar rules. And New Year's celebrations have already begun across the globe, with New Zealand and Australia welcoming in 2023. In Sydney, the New Year was rung in with thousands of fireworks launched from the iconic Harbour Bridge and Sydney Opera House. The 12-minute display featured 100,000 pyrotechnic effects, including a rainbow waterfall. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Nana will be back in just a moment.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's just coming up to 39 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. Now, the 2023 new honours list has been revealed. Now, this is the first one to be signed off by King Charles, and recipients include Queen's guitarist Brian May and our very own Anne Diamond. But one special lady that's also received an honours is Rosamond Kissy Deborah. Now, Rosamond's daughter died in 2013 from a rare form of asthma. Her death was the first of its kind to be linked to air pollution, and she's now campaigning for Ella's Law to ensure that there are policy changes put in place to help keep the air clean. And she describes being made a CBE after her daughter's death as bittersweet, adding, although I got the inquest victory, she will really, really be proud that I didn't give up. And Rosamond Kissy Deborah, now CBE, joins me to discuss this further. So good to see you, Rosamond, again. First of all, how do you feel about this? Because, as you said, it's bittersweet, but your hard work is being recognised.
You just made it very emotional, I suppose, because it's coming from you. I was just sitting there just listening to you. Hence, I feel a little bit emotional. It's 24 days to what would have been Ella's 19th birthday. So, my kids have said to me, Mum, enjoy this second, this moment. Don't do that. But I just can't really help it, really. So, yeah, it's a very proud moment, but I'm not jumping for joy because Ella's Law is in the Houses of Commons and I need so much the public on my side to lobby the MPs to pass it through, because there won't be any point getting this if Ella's Law doesn't get through, because Ella's Law ultimately will save lives, and me getting a CBE is not going to save lives, no.
So for Ella's Law then, what are, not to go into too much depth of it, but ultimately how will it go about saving people's lives?
Well, I can tell you one thing really quickly. It does involve indoor air pollution, which tackles the issue of mold. And when we wrote it back then, we never envisaged anyone would die from mold. And in between it going through the Houses of Laws, as you now know, Howard has died. But since then, many more parents have written to me about the awful conditions they live in. Everything I do, I mean, there's a film coming out about next year about all my campaigning. It's not going to bring my daughter back, no, but I hope. Actually, a consultant told me on December the 19th, a week before Christmas, a senior consultant at King's did say to my son, by the way, all the stuff your mum is doing is actually making a change. So to hear that from someone who works on the front line, that matters greatly. And it's not for any ego. I mean, I've known for quite a while and it hasn't changed me whatsoever. But it's really important that I focus, Nana, I've got to really focus and lobby as hard as possible and not get distracted by this moment. I can't take my eye off the ball for even 1 minute. And I know people will say, oh, enjoy it, it's New Year's Eve, but it's really, really, really important that I continue in the direction I'm going. And I always say to people like yourself, thank you for giving me the platform because you allow me to talk about these things. Look, for today, at some point during midnight, I will think about all the young people that have died from strep A, all the young people this year who have died from asthma, because I know what their parents are going through. So I would definitely think about them, and I will remember them tomorrow in church when I go to church too.
Well, you know what? You should have a glass of something this evening to say, well done to yourself for really pushing it through and working hard, because you are making a change for so many people. And you've got to keep going because you're doing an incredible job. And for your campaign, will this CBE, will it help at all? Will there be any way that it can help to push your campaign? And what can we do to help you?
Well, I hope, the only thing I actually hope it sort of allows, which is a bit ridiculous to say, is that when I write to the like of Keir Starmer or the Prime Minister now, I don't know whether it will help in them responding to me, because they haven't responded to me so far. I don't know whether a CBE is going to make any difference, because I'm still the same person writing. But I would really like both of them to respond to me. And, you know, Chris Whitty has done a report this year about air pollution and health, and everyone in health. Look, when I was younger in school, 1 in 9 people died from cancer. We're now down to 1 in 2. So I beg the British public to support me on this. Look, if I died tomorrow, I'd still want Ella's Law to actually go through to save other people, ultimately. And I actually mean that.
Well, listen, Rosamond, you know, congratulations for getting this honour, which is well-deserved. And Rishi and Keir, you heard what she said. You haven't responded. Would you mind getting in touch with Rosamond, please? Rosamond, thank you so much for joining us. It's really good to talk to you. Take care of yourself and Happy New Year.
New Year.
Happy New Year. That is the incredible Rosamond Kissy-Thebra, isn't she? Amazing, unbelievable. Listen, joining me here is my panel. I've got Lizzie Cundy, Danny Kelly, and also Christine Hamilton. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, New Year's Eve calls for huge celebrations that usually involve a glass of bubbly or two. But what about those who've decided to have a sober New Year? We'll be discussing that next. Plus, a popular dry January. Blech. First, though, a short break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Good afternoon. If you just joined me, where have you been? This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. We are the People's Channel. And of course, it's New Year's Eve, which calls for much celebration, and many will be drinking a glass or 2 of bubbly. But after tonight, you may be thinking about making some lifestyle changes, because one of the biggest ones people undertake in January is actually giving up alcohol. Easier said than done for some. Well, who better to discuss this than John Turner? Was it Tuna? Tuna. Is it tuna?
Turner.
They missed it. Is it because there's no R in it? It's meant to be Turner. They got
It's definitely Turner.
Yeah,
there's an R in it. There is an R in it.
This is tuna here, which is a fish. Founder of Sober Punks, who decided to give up alcohol and has since written a blog to help those give up alcohol as well. John.
That's right.
All right. So why? Why have you done this?
Well, I was
handle it. Is you drink too much?
You know what? I wasn't. You kind of think about an alcoholic as being somebody who has vodka on their cornflakes. And kind of, you know, a homeless person, somebody who's kind of really kind of maybe kind of down and out and struggling. But I think you'll find that society is littered with what we'd call functioning alcoholics.
Yeah.
People who can hold down a decent job, I certainly was, but maybe drink heavily on weekends. And they just find that if they were to take a look at that and take a step back and maybe look at removing alcohol from their lives, then maybe they can reach their full potential. And certainly for me, I realised back in 2015 that the drinking I was doing on the weekends was just stopping me from reaching that potential. I had hangovers that were going until Wednesday sometimes, and that meant that my day job was suffering. That was giving me anxiety.
So how much did you drink then? So give me an example, because I know I have somebody I know who just drank and didn't think that they're an alcoholic. I mean, I could see it. I'm like, he's an alcoholic, but they didn't think they're an alcoholic because they only drank from, say, Friday all the way through until Sunday midnight.
Yeah.
And were comatose for most of it. And, you know, they didn't think they were. That's what I was like, well, that's alcoholism, but they don't think they are.
That's exactly the type of drinker that I was. And I still have lots of friends, lots of people I know who drink what you call in a worse way than I ever did. But the big difference is that for me, I could see that it was holding me back.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you're being held back by alcohol, for me, that's something worth taking a look at. And I can tell you, kind of to evidence that, in the kind of time, in the 7 years since 2015 when I quit drinking, I've achieved more in that time than I did in the first 35 years of my life.
What was your drink? What was your drink?
Oh, it could have been anything. I'm a musician, so on weekends I spend a lot of time touring, so playing, you know, venues where you're surrounded by beer.
It wasn't cider,
so it could have been anything. It could have been cider, it could have been wine, it could have been vodka. I was always a big fan of like Jägermeisters.
Really?
Anything,
Really?
honestly.
No, cider, tramps drink, awful.
And as you say, Friday night to Sunday night, I was just all over it. I loved it. But I was smashed. And then, you know,
and what
Wednesday,
about those
Thursday,
around you, the people around you? Did they not mention anything to you, or were they all sort of drinking quite a bit as well?
I was surrounded by people who were drinking a lot, and it was quite normalised. So it had to come from kind of within me to say, this doesn't feel right anymore. And that didn't suddenly happen. I think for a good few years leading up to when I stopped drinking, I'd already tried a few times to quit. I tried to go to AA, didn't work for me, and it works for a lot of people, but it didn't work for me. And it was just one of those things that I felt I need to do for myself. I think, you know, when you know personally that you have to change for you, for nobody else, that's the time when you'll put the work in and you'll make the effort, you know, to make that change.
Can you have one, though? So, like, tonight you could have a glass of champagne, you'd be fine. Or would it be that you'd have one and you want some more, and you want some more, and you want some more?
So, going back a few years, I mean, it's 7 years now since I quit drinking. The first 6 years, I didn't touch a drop. In the last year, I've got into a position where if I'm celebrating a friend's wedding or a birthday, my relationship with alcohol is very different now to what it was 7 years ago. So occasionally, I can have a glass and I'll be absolutely fine. I'm a different person.
Slippery slope, John.
Slippery slope. But I know that I had to go through that process to learn, to recalibrate the way I see alcohol, and I've got too much to lose nowadays. I didn't have that before.
Well, do you know what? Because you sort of spoil it for yourself if you drink too much, so don't you?
You do.
Let's bring on. Let's bring on journalist Judy Clark, who drank heavily in her 20s and now has given up and is living a sober life. Julie, let me see. Well, Julie, you only look about 21, so what has it been, a year?
Oh, thank you. Very kind. No, I stopped in 2019 after drinking from being a teenager. I'm a child of the 90s, so it was cider in the park, Diamond White, K, all those awful drinks.
Diamond White.
So I started very young. And then in my 20s, I was a journalist in London on the magazines and the newspapers, which was a very heavy drinking culture. Everyone was expected to drink. It was the done thing. Work hard, play hard. And then I went freelance, so I carried on doing my job, but I was still, drinking and meeting friends and drinking. And it was just a cultural thing. And it did impact my life. I had embarrassing situations. I'd fall asleep on trains. I'd miss the tube. I'd be so ill the next day I'd have to go in late. As the chap just now who was saying, you realise that it impacts your life. Even if you're functioning and you're doing very well and you seem to be doing very well, you're not. And perhaps people around you know you're not, but they're almost afraid to tell you.
Well, you know it's going bad when you wet yourself. Not that I've ever done it. I don't drink that much at all. But so how long has it been that you have been sober and not drinking? How many years?
2019. I stopped in November 2019. And it, again, like your chap there was saying, it wasn't. I thought it might be a hard thing to do, but I think when you know you've got to stop, and you have to have that discussion with yourself. For me, it was actually easier than I thought. I thought I'd need help, but I didn't. It was just when you make that decision yourself, it's time. And I haven't had a single alcoholic drink since. So it'll be 3-4 years soon.
Yeah, I know what that's like. It's like, for me, it was when I've eaten too many Brazil nuts, I know I'm not going to touch them for a month, for a while. Do you know what I mean? It's almost a reaction where you think, I've had enough of this. It doesn't actually make me feel good. John, so how difficult then? Because John said that he could have one every now and again now, because he's
very rarely, but
very rarely.
But yeah.
Are you going to have one tonight?
No, I'll be having a cup of Yorkshire tea tonight.
What about you, Julie? Tonight it is New Year's. Are you planning to have even one?
No. As I say, I haven't touched one since 2019, and it literally doesn't appeal to me anymore. It's not even that it disgusts me; it just doesn't interest me. I've also had flu for a week since Christmas, so I'm going to sort of sit in with my pajamas on and be really boring anyway. So it's not really up for debate. But yeah, it doesn't even tempt me anymore.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? Because I used to drink quite a bit when I was at university and everything else like that, and I drank, and then I saw people who drank too much, and that completely put me off drinking a lot. As soon as I watched the kind of drinking, actually, John, that you described, I saw that and I thought, do you know what? I can't even be bothered. And if I go shopping and there's a party or anything, I'll actually forget to buy the drink, and I'm more likely to buy chamomile tea and cake. Which is sad. Isn't it sad?
Yeah, I think you replace one thing with another. I mean, I've certainly replaced my vice with chocolate. I mean, I won't lie. You do kind of get something else instead. So for me, it's definitely chocolate now.
A lot of people who quit drinking tend to start doing things like running or writing. You get a lot of people start to focus on fitness or spirituality. You do find that people who do tend to drink lots generally have addictive personalities. And that addictiveness potentially won't go away, but can be funneled towards more productive things, such as, running a marathon. I've got through my kind of work with Soberpunks, I've met some fantastic people who've taken that addictive personality and just thrown it at something for good. And people who do ultra marathons and have written books and all sorts of fantastic things.
Get yourself addicted.
Refocusing that energy.
Try not to refocus it on food, though.
Yeah.
So John, your thoughts then. You've got 10 seconds to give us a good bit of advice to somebody who's thinking about quitting drinking.
I mean, the key thing for me is to look at certainly for the first month or so, to look at where you're going to spend your time, avoid situations and people who might get you into the drinking, and also do what we call play the tape forward. Think about where you're going to end up tomorrow morning if you do drink tonight.
That was only supposed to be 10 seconds, John. Julie, 10 seconds to you, see if you can do better. Bit of advice.
I'd advise you have to know when you want to stop. So there's no point trying to stop if other people are telling you and you don't. You'll know when you're ready to stop, and you will.
Thank you very much, John and Julie. It's really good to talk to you. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. News is on the way. More to come in the next hour.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking mostly cloudy with outbreaks of rain, but drier and brighter in the northwest. Here's the details. It will be cold and rather cloudy across northern Scotland this afternoon. There will be some sunny spells at times, but also scattered wintry showers, bringing snow to higher ground. The weather over Northern Ireland will be mostly dry with plenty of sunny spells developing. As we head into the afternoon, winds will be falling light. It will remain rather cloudy across northwest England with limited sunny spells here. There will also be some patchy rain or showers at times too. It will be very cloudy across Wales with cloud low enough to bring hill fog at times. There will be outbreaks of locally heavy rain with the driest conditions in the east. It will be overcast in the East Midlands this afternoon with prolonged at times heavy rain for all areas. It will be rather windy with strong gusts, feeling mild for this time of year. East Anglia will be cloudy throughout the afternoon with prolonged spells of locally heavy rain throughout. There will be some drier and brighter spells, but they will be limited. It'll be a windy afternoon across southern England, especially along the coast. It will be cloudy here with spells of locally heavy rain edging eastwards. Further spells of rain across southern areas while remaining cold in the north with wintry showers over northern Scotland. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons. I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
It is 2 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. Joining me today is journalist, broadcaster who's just yawning, Danny Kelly. Was it not you?
It was me.
Well, how about you then? It's broadcaster and author Christine Hamilton. She was the one that was yawning. And also TV personality and columnist Lizzie Cundy. But before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. It's 2 minutes past 4. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. King Charles has sent his condolences to Pope Francis following the death of former Pope Benedict XVI, recalling his constant efforts to promote peace and goodwill. Pope Benedict was the head of the Catholic Church from 2005 until his resignation in 2013. He became the first pontiff to step down from the role in 600 years due to old age and ill health. Pope Francis will lead his funeral on the 5th of January at St. Peter's Square. Well, Associate Editor at the Catholic Herald, Simon Caldwell, spoke to us earlier about Pope Benedict's legacy.
Benedict wasn't going to allow people to come in with all kinds of novelties and revolutionary reforms and this kind of thing. He said, no, this is a sacred deposit. This is something which this is what we hold to be true. And it wasn't that he was against homosexuals or against women or anything like that. He was upholding 2,000 years of Christian teaching, and said this is what it means to be a Christian.
4 Lionesses who won the Women's Euros earlier this year are among those recognised in the New Year Honours List, the first to be issued by King Charles. Captain Leah Williamson has been made an OBE, whilst Lucy Bronze, Beth Mead and Ellen White have been given MBEs. GB News presenter Anne Diamond has received an OBE for her services to public health and charity. And Queen guitarist and animal welfare campaigner Brian May has received a knighthood.
It's a nice surprise to have this honour put upon me. I also think it comes with a responsibility to behave, I guess to continue to behave in a way which benefits the country and the rest of the population here and the world as well, But I take this responsibility quite seriously anyway.
Brian May there talking about what it means to be honoured. Well, the government has confirmed that anyone travelling directly from China to England from the 5th of January must show a negative COVID test before departure. There are no direct flights from China to Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland, but the government says it will work with devolved administrations to ensure that measures are implemented there too. It's amid concerns of surging cases in China following an easing of restrictions there. France, Spain and the US also have introduced similar rules. Russia's defence ministry says 82 of their soldiers who were captured by Ukraine have been released in the latest prisoner exchange between the two sides. Ukraine is yet to comment on the claims. Meanwhile, the mayor of Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, says 10 explosions have been heard in the city. That's after air raid sirens were sounded in every region of the country. At least one person was killed. New Year's celebrations have already begun, with New Zealand and Australia welcoming in 2023. In Sydney, the new year was welcomed with thousands of fireworks launched from Sydney's iconic Harbour Bridge and Opera House. For the first time ever, the dazzling display featured a rainbow waterfall for inclusivity. You're watching GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's get straight back to Nana.
Good afternoon, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. It's fast approaching 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. After the year of politics we've had, there seems to be a distinct silence from the Conservative Party. I mean, we're used to it from the Labour Party, but this is unfamiliar territory for them. After the constant nibbling at Boris Johnson like a load of piranha, unelected by the people Prime Minister Fishy Rishi has done a vanishing act. Where is he? Where's Rishi?
We need a bit more leadership,
Where is he?
Don't we?
I mean, I know he's short, but at least
he's totally disappeared. He's getting another branch of soap.
He's just walked past now. You can't see him. He's just behind us. Is he in the cupboard? It wouldn't have to be a big one. He'd fit. Perhaps he's under the desk. So in the midst of the strikes orchestrated by this man...
Any chance you'll be taking an interview with GB News anytime soon?
I don't think so. They're not my favourites.
They're a bunch of right-wing bigots as far as what I can see. So occasionally they get an interview because they're in the crowd, but I've got no interest in meeting Nigel Farage or any of their other right-wing militants that they've got, so that's that.
I guess he must mean me. And just when we're all looking for leadership, Rishi has gone very quiet. In fact, Rishi Sunak is merging into Sadiq Khan. Both rarely seen in public, but when they do speak, it's so forgettable. Maybe he has said something, and I've just forgotten what it was that he said. He resurfaced for a moment this week to give us his New Year's message. He warned us that the UK's problems will not go away in 2023 after a tough 12 months. You don't say. A year which has been us trying to pick up the pieces of a financial mess, one which he was created by him during his tenure as Chancellor. Even Sir Keir Starmer is marginally more visible in his speech. He called for a new Britain that will fix the struggling public services and grow the economy for everyone. Keir also talked about the Queen and the Lionesses, which is interesting that he had mentioned them because they are women. He doesn't appear to know what one of those is and whether they have a penis or not. I can tell you, Keir, we don't. But amidst this crisis, Rishi has remained pretty quiet. So where on earth is he? Where has he gone? Maybe he's vanished into his Prada shoes. Before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should we abolish the House of Lords? 2022 has been a tough year for the House of Lords. There's been outrage at the idea that former Prime Minister Liz Truss, who was only in office for 44 days, would be allowed to release her recommendations for peerages. And now Labour are saying that if they were to be elected, they would abolish the House of Lords. So is there a place for an unelected chamber in year 2023? At 4:50, how could we miss it? Royal Roundup time. Royal biographer Angela Levin will be live in the studio to give us a summary of what's been an eventful year for the royals. From the death of Queen Elizabeth to that Netflix mockumentary released by Harry and Meghan. We'll also be looking forward to Harry's new book and the King's coronation next year. And then stay with me at 5. It's this week's Difficult Conversation. Author and chef Lyndon Wissart will be joining me live in the studio to discuss how he cured himself naturally from type 2 diabetes, or put it into remission in any case. He did it in just 105 days. He'll be inspiring us and give us an idea of some of those diet tips that could help us get back in track and also shed those Christmas pounds. That's coming up in the next hour. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel journalist and broadcaster Danny Kelly, author and broadcaster Christian Hamilton, and, of course, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Right, so let's talk about Fishy Rishi's vanished into his shoes. Danny Kelly, I'll start with you.
I don't know where the hell he is. I drove 95 miles down here to get here. I was keeping an eye out for him. I got into the Ules zone and I was particularly looking for him, and I couldn't see him. Do you know what? With that fabulous monologue, by the way, which made me howl with laughter. One thing about Mickey Lynch, what an intolerant little lefty he is. The fact that he won't talk to GB News. Yeah. He's a big Brexiteer, that lad. OK, so he doesn't agree with right-wing politics. But there's so much more to GB News than having right-wing opinions on. And it just summarises the intolerant left. And they're the real bigots and they're the real bullies.
It shows he hasn't watched GB News, because if he'd really watched, he couldn't possibly say what he said.
He's so prejudiced.
He's so just utterly prejudiced.
We are
about it.
fair. We argue on all sorts, don't we? We don't all agree. We're not biased. And he has a huge, big £1 million pad, champagne socialist.
Well, he's also getting his normal salary, isn't he?
Yeah,
whilst
he's not
everybody's on strike. And they're getting a pittance for this privilege because he won't, maybe come down on his demands.
The problem is that Mr Lynch is all too visible, whereas, as you say, where is Rishi? It is. Well, he did write an article in, I think it was The Sun, about 2 weeks ago, in case you missed it. I know he did.
But that's just an article.
But what I find extraordinary, I mean, was it a New Year, end-of-year message, whatever it was? I have never, ever seen anything so boring and wooden, and I can't really actually read this auto cue very well. And it was dreadful, so uninspiring. But he surely must have, or should have, learnt the lesson. One of the problems of Liz Truss, and I'm trying to think of their names now, Kwasi Kwarteng, was because they delivered their budget, which I thought had all the right ideas, low tax and high growth, etc., but then they didn't explain it and they disappeared and they went below the radar and the result was a disaster. He should have been out there. He should be out there constantly trying to explain everything to people. We are heading not this year, next year, for the lowest wages since World War II, apparently, according to the predictions. Now, that is an incredible state of affairs, and I think Lizzie mentioned that, or you did, that he presided over some of the decline when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer. So where the hell is he?
It's such a good question. Where is Rishi? Where is he? Maybe he's doing a degree in incompetence.
Maybe he's won some invisibility powers.
Yes.
I'm all in favour of delegation, and of course that's the whole point of cabinet government, and you do the health and you do the education and you do that. But in times of pretty major crisis, which I think this government is in and will be in for quite a long time, he's the head. He should be out there.
He's gone into, like, Houdini mode. He's the invisible man. We don't know where he is at a time where...
Maybe he is here, but he's hidden somewhere
Possibly.
We can't see him.
Under the Christmas tree.
It's like a little elf.
He's left us in the political wilderness. Because we don't know what he's doing. He's taken his Lib Lab. They're not the Tories anymore. No. They're not doing anything about this critical situation, as Christine said. I mean, look what's going on with the NHS, the immigration, the borders are botched, Britain is broken, and where is our Prime Minister? Nowhere to be seen. I think it's absolutely disgusting.
You would think, right, that he would, when it was COVID and Boris would appear and he'd talk and then somebody else would speak, and then you would think that all these ministers would be speaking to us as the public and letting us know what's going on, and at least giving us some sort of idea of that somebody is steering the ship. But I'm not getting that from any of them, and I'm not getting that for any idea from the Labour Party.
Maybe this is a deliberate tactic to be aloof because of all of the politics with the strikes. Because you can imagine if he gave a daily press briefing over the festive period.
God forbid.
But you can imagine, and then he's visible, so we can't complain about his visibility because he's there. But most of the questions would be about the strikes, maybe.
Well, that's exactly it. He should answer the questions, shouldn't he?
Well, I think what he's doing is politically sort of remaining aloof, not to give any leverage to the strikers. So it's like, we don't care if you're on strike because you're going to break and blink before we do.
What about leadership, though? Leadership,
we need leadership. Look, after his campaign, after his promotional videos, the slick videos, all I'm going to give, all the promises, and now he disappears. I mean, what is this man about? I'm so underwhelmed, and that's the word I can use. I would rather say another word. I mean, he's totally just not here.
Joe Biden's in the Caribbean.
So what's that got to do with
maybe Rishi's in the Caribbean
Exactly.
too.
He could fit in a suitcase.
He did go...
in the overhead locker.
In his defence, he did go to Ukraine. We saw the pictures of him wandering around in Ukraine. He has done that.
But the order of the first order of any government is to look after its people. He's not looking after his people.
Well, he may be, but he's not telling us about it.
What about the Christmas message as well, that he phoned people around the world?
Oh, that was awful.
Didn't think to speak to us, just have a chat with a load of people on the phone.
That was such a gimmick.
It was awful. I mean, even the campaign that he obviously waged with Boris, he'd already set up the suntan stuff and all these things. I mean, you don't just bring a product out the next day.
Well, no.
It takes months to create the product, create the brand, create the exterior. He'd been thinking about this. Was a setup. And then he brought out his suntan cream.
What's the suntan cream?
Did you not see it? No, it's a sunblock. Don't go red. Don't go in. Get
Get the Rishi, whatever.
So you wouldn't go red as in Labour.
It was such a stupid.
But he had it ready.
But sadly, do you not think, as I said from the start, and the reason why I did actually support Liz Truss over Rishi is that he's out of touch, and you saw that when he spoke to the homeless person saying, "Well, you know, are you going to be starting up your own business?" And he was like, "Well, I just want to get through Christmas."
To be fair to him, he didn't say that. He said, "Are you in business?" Rather than
yes, but it's to a homeless person. But he's out of touch. And how can people relate to this billionaire? I just don't think people can relate to him, and he's not relating to its people.
Well, he would know as well to start a business or to even get any benefit, you need an address. So if you're homeless, it's a pretty stupid question.
Yes, it is.
It's just a ridiculous question.
Yeah.
I don't think we should hold against him the fact that he's a billionaire. I was about to say
Why not?
Well, because it doesn't necessarily stop him being a good Prime Minister. I'm not saying it makes him a good Prime Minister. It doesn't stop him. Nobody should be held back from any role because they're rich.
But he's not relating to
No,
everyday people.
no,
He's
of course
saying
he's
to a
not.
homeless
No.
person, have you got a business?
But that's not because he's rich. That's because he's not able to do it.
He's not
How was the
able to
eaten, educated
understand.
Boris Johnson able to connect with the everyday plebs like us four?
Well, he wasn't a billionaire, was he?
But he's incredibly well.
He will be any minute.
Well, I hope he deserves to be a billionaire after what he was put through, Boris. I hope he does do well out of it.
But all that energy and effort he did to backstab Boris, then he parachutes his way into number 10. And what does he do? He goes missing. Thank you very much.
Do you know, when you said a parachute, I just saw a parachute going adrift because it couldn't land because it wasn't heavy enough.
Unbelievable.
Floating in the wind.
Now you're being weightist.
I shouldn't be
You're
horrible.
being weightist. You're not allowed
Danny's
to be
will come
weightist.
Hang on. Leave the
Yours will
fact
come
outs.
straight down.
There's more time for the fat gags.
But I mean, where is he? He's having a beer maybe at the Last Chance Saloon, and
he doesn't drink.
But no one's buying him a drink. So get on with the job, Rishi.
And he wasn't
can you?
elected, was he?
No.
He wasn't elected by
Yeah,
the
but
Conservative members.
that's a fault of the system. That is the system. You elect the Conservatives and they choose their
Correct.
leader, and it's up to them who they
But
choose.
if I wasn't elected, I'd make myself visible.
Well,
Couldn't
listen,
agree
stay with
more.
us. We're
Yeah,
going to be
quite
talking
agree.
a lot throughout the show. It is New Year's Eve, of course. Welcome aboard. If you've just joined me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, and it's time for our great British debate this hour. No, that wasn't it. I'm asking, should we abolish the House of Lords? Looking ahead to this evening's weather as well, it will be on the way next.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK will be cloudy, wet and blustery for many as rain pushes northwards with some snow. Here are the details. Starting off in the southwest, and by 7 p.m, most of the day's rain will have moved away with clear spells developing. However, don't put away the brolly just yet, as there'll still be some blustery showers. It's a cloudy and windy picture over in the southeast. While much of the rain will have started to clear, there will still be some lingering spells as well. Meanwhile, there'll be persistent and heavy rain across northern parts of Wales. Further south, things will be turning drier, but it'll still be quite blustery too. Most of the rain will have cleared away from the West Midlands by this evening. There'll be some light rain and cloud for a time, but clearer skies are likely as we head towards midnight. A spell of persistent rain will push through this evening across northeast England. The rain will be heavy at times, but will start to clear as we head into the new year. The wintry showers across northern Scotland will ease this evening, but wet surfaces bring the risk of icy patches overnight. Rain and snow will feed in from the south later on. Now across Northern Ireland, it'll be cloudy at first this evening, but the heavy and persistent rain will arrive, meaning it's set to be wet for most at midnight. Tonight, skies will turn clearer in the south as the band of rain, sleet and snow continues its way northwards. That's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
This is a GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's time now for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should we abolish the House of Lords? In an exclusive piece by The Guardian, it's been revealed that 1 in 10 Conservative peers has given more than £100,000 to the party, raising more concern that donors are being prioritised rather than individuals who are necessarily more deserving. Now, the Conservatives have long argued that peerages to donors are given on the basis of other achievements, but with increasing scrutiny being placed on the House of Lords, with Labour even calling for its disbandment, is it time to abolish it altogether? Well, joining me now for the Great British Debate is journalist and broadcaster Sam Dowler, reality TV star and commentator Narinder Kaur, Conservative peer and education commentator Lord Rafe Lucas, and political commentator Reem Ibrahim. Right, I'm going to start with you, Rafe. What do you think, then, Lord Rafe Lucas, the House of Lords, does it need to stay or should it be abolished?
It should certainly be reformed. Whether it's abolished or not depends what you want to do with the functions it performs at the moment. There is no provision in Parliament for the detailed scrutiny we do, and we have odd little powers like the ability to make the Commons have an election every 5 years. If you just abolished it straight out, this government could continue until it ran out of by-elections.
True, I see. So they would determine that that's the sort of thing it does. But you could have an elected House of Lords rather than an unelected one. So then,
you could.
What would you think of that?
And when we spend our time fighting the Commons for power, it would be rather like the stalemate on a bad day in the United States. If you make big changes, then you make changes in the whole system. And you've really got to look not just at one bit of it, but how the whole system works.
Sam Dowler, what do you think?
Well, I think the whole thing reeks of cronyism. I mean, you only have to look at, the peers that Johnson has put up, and just wonder what exactly is going on. I mean, the whole thing is it's cronyism, it's corruption. I mean, I'm a traditionalist, so I actually do think that we should keep the House of Lords, but it needs to be completely restructured and reformed. I mean, otherwise it just looks like people pay to get a peerage, and you've got ex-KGB money in there as well. I mean, the whole thing just stinks, frankly.
Not proven. You're just saying that there's no real proof of that at the moment. I mean, that's just you're just saying that we don't know. But what about having it elected then, an elected House of Lords? Because you said that you'd keep it, but would you have it electable, get people elected instead then?
I don't know, Nana. Do we really want more elections? I think that would obviously change the entire thing. I think I like the fact that it is it's a lifelong thing, and I think that's it's nice. It's good British tradition. I love that sort of thing. But how would that even work? I mean, I think people should get peerages on their merit, on like people like a carer who's worked for 40 years, for example, that sort of thing. I mean, you get it because you deserve it, not because you've got the cash.
Okay, Narinder, You've been quiet for a while, so let's see. Not
You're
like
very
you.
lovely in that yellow, by the way, Nana. And I think the question is, what is the House of Lords for? And if it's a block legislation or scrutinise it, surely it should be democratically elected. I mean, all we're seeing is random appointments, potential corruption, donations, hereditary peers. What is all this about? This House of Lords is not representative at all. It's actually just middle-aged, white, rich men. And I think it stinks. The whole thing stinks.
Well, that's not quite true. There are women and there are some people of colour.
Two-thirds are white old men.
Yeah, well, I mean, just think about the population as a whole, and then, I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly representative of the environment that it is in. That doesn't really, I don't think that makes much difference. It's just whether they're the best people to do the job. In your view, though, do you think that perhaps then, if you're saying that it shouldn't be, what's your alternative?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'd say elected. We need an elected second chamber. I know that does create some kind of,
elections. Well,
sorry?
what you described at the beginning could have also been a description of the House of Commons. Let's go to Reem. Reem, what do you think?
Look, I think what Narinda is quite incorrect about this is that having an elected chamber would essentially mean that the legitimacy of the House of Commons completely goes away. And the House of Lords is not just old, rich, white men. You've got people like Stephen Lawrence's mother, who's a life peer in the House of Lords, who does fantastic work campaigning for sort of knife crime prevention, that sort of thing. There are fantastic people that have been appointed to the House of Lords as life peers. I think we've also got to remember the role of the House of Lords. It's to scrutinise legislation, and we saw how fantastic they did that during the COVID pandemic, where they scrutinised the government's use of emergency powers. So I think that their role is impeccably important. But what we need to remember is actually that role of the House of Lords and that tradition. I mean, how many other countries in the world have copied our bicameral parliamentary system? It's, they've copied it for a reason, because it's a beautiful tradition. I think that we shouldn't, in this day and age, we're always trying to get rid of British traditions. Let's keep this one.
How can you ignore 27 members have paid almost 50 million to the Tory party? Why would you want to keep a tradition where they're paying to become a lord?
We don't need to keep those terrible parts of the House of Lords. We can always reform it. And I think that electing them means that we essentially have more elections, and it means that they are accountable to the people rather than experts. And we don't get people like Stephen Lawrence's mother or like Lord Lancaster, people that do fantastic charity work. A carer for 40 years, I think, Sam, that's a fantastic idea. We should be appointing people that have real life experience. Get rid of the hereditary peers, get rid of the appointments from the Prime Minister. Let's allow them to be experts, people that have really lived in the real world. Electing them will just get rid of it. It will mean that the House of Lords loses its legitimacy.
But that might not necessarily get rid of the sort of corruption that we're talking about if we were to say that giving money, but it does feel a bit like money for honours. Rafe, well, what do you think with regard to that then? Because £100,000 from a load of people who suddenly get peerages just doesn't really feel very good.
But I need to be a bit cautious about this, because I rather suspect that mine comes from my forebears paying Charles II a lot of money. So it was because he was always running out of money. Not that Sir Charles Lucas didn't deserve a peerage, but Charles II generally sold to keep his finances afloat. No, it's something we should end. The membership of the House of Lords should be based on people who can contribute, and if our work is to scrutinise legislation, then you want people like, say, Robert Winston, who was a political appointment by Tony Blair, but the benefit that he and others have brought to the Lords, because they're prepared to give it time and really look at the details of legislation, is enormous.
Sam, what do you think?
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, the way it stands at the moment, I mean, obviously, The Guardian have written about this, and Keir Starmer has talked about it as well. I mean, it looks. I mean, there's a possibility that Liz Truss is going to be able to dish out a load of peerages. Or you've got, I mean, it's ridiculous. And obviously Johnson has, just people that just agree with him, or people just that that wants to peddle his lies, whatever. It's just like, I mean, it doesn't work at the moment, and the whole nation can see it. And I mean, whether we have an American style, Senate, etc., like the two houses they have in America. I mean, they're both voted for. We could do it perhaps like that. I don't know, but I mean, at the moment, it just, I mean, the more you look into it, the more it's shameful, and it's amazing it's managed to go on like this for so long.
Narinda.
I'd say, I feel like we live in Great Britain, and I like to think that it's a democratic society. And we would all have to agree, there's a huge lack of credibility. And where is the democratic legitimacy in the House of Lords? There is none.
And Reem, final word to you.
I think, we've got 786 members in the House of Lords. We need to reduce the size, reform it, and allow there to be the panel of experts, people like Stephen Lawrence's mum, who really know and have lived real lives and do fantastic work.
Well, thank you very much for that. That's journalist and broadcaster Sam Daly, reality TV star and commentator Narinder Kaur, Conservative peer and education commentator Lord Rafe Lucas, and political commentator Reem Ibrahim. Thank you so much for your thoughts. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, we will continue with the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should we abolish the House of Lords? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, journalist and broadcaster Danny Kelly, author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton, and broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Then stay with me. At 5, I'll be joined live in the studio by a famous author and chef on how he cured himself, or at least put at bay, his type 2 diabetes in only just 105 days. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
33 minutes past 4, I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. Pope Francis has spoken publicly for the first time since the death of former Pope Benedict, who passed away this morning, aged 95. The pontiff said his predecessor was a noble, kind man who was a gift to the Church. King Charles has sent his condolences to Pope Francis, recalling Pope Benedict's constant efforts to promote peace and goodwill. Pope Benedict was the head of the Catholic Church from 2005 until his resignation in 2013. He became the first pontiff to step down from the role in 600 years due to old age and ill health. Pope Francis will lead his funeral on the 5th of January at St. Peter's Square. 4 lionesses who won the Women's Euro 2022 are among those recognised in the New Year Honours List, the first to be issued by King Charles. Captain Leah Williamson has been made an OBE, while her teammates Lucy Bronze, Beth Mead and Ellen White have been given MBEs. GB News' own Anne Diamond has also received an OBE for services to public health and charity. Meanwhile, Queen guitarist Brian May has received a knighthood. The government has confirmed that anyone travelling directly from China to England from the 5th of January must show a negative COVID test before departure. There are no direct flights from China to Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland, but the government says it will work with devolved administrations to ensure measures are implemented there too. It's amid concerns about surging cases in China following an easing of restrictions. France, Spain and the US have also introduced similar rules. And in Yorkshire, a walrus has delighted locals by making an appearance in the town of Scarborough. It's thought to be the first time that one's been spotted in the county. The Arctic animal has drawn crowds to the harbour on New Year's Eve, wildlife experts saying he's likely taking a break before continuing his journey north. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're watching GB News. Nana will be back in just a moment.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back. It's just coming up to 39 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. It's now time for our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should we abolish the House of Lords? And in an exclusive piece by The Guardian, it was revealed that 1 in 10 Conservative peers have given more than £100,000 to the party, raising more concerns that donors are being prioritised rather than individuals who are necessarily more deserving. Now, the Conservatives have long argued that peerages to donors are given on the basis of their achievements, but with the increasing scrutiny being placed on the House of Lords, with Labour even calling for its disbandment, is it time that we just abolished it altogether? Well, let's see what my panel will make of that. I'm joined by journalist and broadcaster Danny Kelly, author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton, and broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Right, I'm going to start with you, Christine, because you... Because you
start with that before.
Well, Christine, before she falls asleep.
I must defend myself. I've had 3 young children staying for over a week, and it's quite tiring for a lady of my age.
Well, you've done it over 25.
Looking good, though.
Yeah. Christine, what do you think about this? The House of Lords, is it time for it to go?
It's certainly time for reform. I mean, the last time any sort of big reform, as it were, it wasn't that big, was in 1999, when Blair introduced electing the hereditary peers. So we got rid of a massive... Funnily enough, the hereditary peers, who are the most sort of democratic people in the Lords, are actually the only ones who are elected, because they have been elected by their peers, the other hereditary peers. So at least there's an element of merit in that. And as some of the ones who were elected in the early days fall off their perch, new ones get elected. So, I mean, that's a sort of anachronism, really. But no, definitely needs reforming, and it needs to be certainly cut in size. It needs to be about half. The trouble is each government at Westminster wants to stuff it with their own people. So it all started under Labour because there were too many Tories, because most of the hereditary peers were Tories, so the Labour stuffed it in, and then the Liberals wanted to stuff their people in. And they're always... It's like wage claims. You know, if everybody does it, it's never ending. They should cut it in half. What is wrong with having sort of sectoral elections? So, for example, there's the bench of bishops, or the bishop's bench, whatever it's called. Why can't the church, given if you accept that the church should have some representation, which I know some people don't, the church elects maybe 10 bishops, and they elect their own to sit in the Lords. And then you could say maybe, if you want to, you could have regional. You could have Scotland electing some people, Wales electing, Northern Ireland, England electing people.
So you would have the
groups of people.
The chamber would be elected.
Yes, but not not directly elected in the way that the Commons is, because that would give it a legitimacy.
Oh, God.
Well, then
No,
you would.
so many
It's
elections.
terribly complicated. No,
That would give the upper house too much power, though.
too much
surely.
legitimacy, democratic legitimacy.
But that would give the upper house too much
That's
power.
why I'm not advocating that.
Oh, right, OK.
No.
For me, I think, as we've all said, it needs to be reformed, most definitely, but it's one of the most beautiful traditions, isn't it? And, when the King is going to go and open Parliament. But when you look, there are 786 peers. I've looked it up.
There are 800 and something now.
Well, there are 671 are life peers, 90 are hereditary, and 26 are senior bishops or lords spiritual from the Church of England. Now, I don't actually think religion and politics should be together, and it needs to be reformed.
But there perhaps should be some sort of representation from the church.
Look, if we're honest, it's a toothless tiger. It can't stop, it can't prevent, it can delay, it can make things awkward, but it's got no real bite, the House of Lords. I wasn't...
Just to remind you,
it's very useful as a revising chamber.
It sets the period for which someone can stay in power. So that's what we were told.
Correct, but we know that there's 5 years. So let's just stick with 5 years. Apart from that, what else does it do?
Well, it's very, very useful in revising legislation. If there's a lot of legislation going through, the Commons simply doesn't have time. Certainly not now that they've cut their hours back.
It scrutinises
Yes, of course. But it doesn't really reject anything. It scrutinises
it. It scrutinises the business of the House of Commons. They can't overrule.
Begrudgingly accepts things. I wasn't aware until Sam said, because I'm with Sam, I love the tradition, I'm a traditionalist. I love the way it looks and it appears and the garb and the pomp and the ceremony. I didn't realise how much money was thrown at various parties through these lords. And why should they, and let's go back to the unelected element to this, why should someone who's unelected have some bite in politics?
Well, listen, they get £323 a day.
Tax-free as well.
Yeah, well, so this is the thing. There's a lot of money going to these people. There's almost 800 of them.
They have to turn up at least for 5 minutes. Yeah. Hang their hat on a peg.
Yes, but that's got to be refined. That's got to be reformed.
But in with regard to actually getting rid of them, if we were to get rid of the House of Lords, what would we put in its place? That's the problem.
That's the problem. And look at the people that they have got, like Sir Alan Sugar, who uses all his expertise and his help, which is great. We need people like him involved, and I think it has many benefits. And it does scrutinise the business of the House of Commons. And
that's a tradition. I'm not convinced that they've got any...
Well, there are so many... We've got to have something. We can't just have the House of Commons. And there are so many permutations and combinations that I'm afraid we need, a royal commission or something like that to look at it. And we've had sort of piecemeal things over the years, which have all, in their way, I think it was very good to abolish the totally hereditary element. That was absurd. But there is so many permutations and combinations and alternatives that I'm afraid it needs a serious long-term study.
How would
and then they'll never agree.
Narinda's first criticism was that it was full of old white people.
Oh, well, that's not correct.
How would you replace... What would her system be? To replace the old white men like me...
You should appoint
people who are black and brown and possibly female.
You appoint the peers on merit. That's what it should be.
Well, it's not that, though, is it? Because it appears that way, but then it seems that there's money going in and these people suddenly become peers.
There are some black and donors of colour.
Yes, of course.
Who have possibly bought their way into the House of Lords as well. It's not just the white old men doing it. No names, no pack drill.
But that's the situation. I mean, for me, I just think somebody should go there based on merit, whether it doesn't matter. I don't care what colour they are.
Exactly.
It is good. It makes common sense to have a more representative of different cultures, because then you get a wider base for agreement and you get a sort of a fuller discussion. So that to me makes sense.
You have it in the lower parliament.
But hang on, sorry.
Lower chamber.
But it shouldn't be based on, we need 10 black people, 5. That's just nonsense. I don't go
exactly.
with that at all.
It's based on merit, and that's how it should work. But it does need to be reformed.
But I like the fact that it's unelected. I actually like the fact that it's unelected, because that way they're not sort of beholding to someone or something to try and get enough people to vote for me. I'll say something nice because these people were that, or I'll do this because I'll get more votes, or I'll do this. So I think it's better that it isn't. But I think it does have to be based on merit and merit alone.
Well, if you apply that logic, why not make the lower chamber unelected?
Oh, no.
A rule of silence.
Everybody. On the business of merit, can I just say something we were talking about earlier, which I find smashingly unfair? All those lionesses contributed to that thing. Yeah. Why do only 4 of them get honoured? I agree that the captain could maybe get a higher honour, but I think every single member of that team deserves something.
You can't give them all, and I think it's good.
Of course you can.
Give them something to go for. Well, listen,
you work as a team.
Single out 4, I think, was deeply unfair.
Let's welcome our great British voices, because we want to find out what they think of the topics that we're discussing. Right. Where should we go? Yeah, let's head over to... Should we go to Reading?
Reading.
Yeah, Jess is there. Let's have a chat to Jess Gill, who's in Reading. Happy New Year's Eve, because it's not quite New Year's. Happy New Year's Eve. Your hair looks nice, Jess. Nice to see you. Cool. So what do you think about the House of Lords? Are you all for them, or do you think they need to be abolished? Should they be changed? What's your view?
I mean, I agree with you guys. I think some sort of reform is needed, but I also agree with you, Nana, that I think the fact that it is unelected is a very, very strong positive. After all, what is popular isn't necessarily what is right. I think that's very useful, because I think, you know, stuff like welfare states and big government, that sounds nice, but I think using that that scrutiny of the House of Lords, I think that's so useful.
Well, Jess, listen, I'm kind of agreeing with you. Are you off out somewhere nice tonight, by the way? Your hair looks great. You look fab. Are you going off for New Year's Eve?
Yeah, it should be fun. I'm meeting some friends.
Lovely. Well, don't drink too much. Thank you very much, Jess. Lovely to talk to you. That's lovely, Jess. She's there in Reading. She joins us. She's our great British voice. Right, today I'm asking, should we abolish the House of Lords? Lots of you been getting in touch with your views. Gavin says this unelected Prime Minister really should get on with doing what his immediate predecessor was never given the chance to. If we're considering abolishing the unelected House of Lords, I like that, because they're both unelected, aren't they, really? Infinitely more credible than the Prime Minister. Perhaps Sunak could go with them. I think he's too young for the House of Lords, isn't he?
No.
Isn't he?
No.
Ryan says, I don't think the House of Lords should be scrapped. We should return to the hereditary system rather than the current system of political appointments. There were far less cases of the Lord blocking legislation before the 1999 reforms. So he's saying that we should have hereditary.
I don't agree with Mike.
No, I don't like that. Mike says, after voting to get rid of those MEPs back in 2017, maybe it's time we were given the choice to get rid of the House of Lords. I think if we had a vote to get rid of them, that people...
it would go just like that.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I do. I think the vast majority, polls indicate the vast majority of the population would say
Well, I'm sure it would do, but
I'm not saying I would vote for
that. The turnout would be about 7%.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? Yeah. Anne says, not abolished, needs making smaller, definitely needs some sort of reform. Mike says, reform, not abolished, end hereditary peers and bishops. And also, I've got a poll up right now on Twitter throughout the show asking whether we should abolish the House of Lords. Currently, well, 67% of you say yes, we should.
Wow.
Wow, I would have expected that.
No. Well, if you just joined me, welcome. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, it's time for the Royal Roundup, where royal biographer Angela Levin will join me to discuss the huge year 2022 has been for the royals and what we can expect in 2023. But first, let's get some weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK will be cloudy, wet and blustery for many as rain pushes northwards with some snow. Here are the details. Starting off in the southwest, and by 7 p.m, most of the day's rain will have moved away with clear spells developing. However, don't put away the brolly just yet, as there'll still be some blustery showers. It's a cloudy and windy picture over in the southeast. While much of the rain will have started to clear, there will still be some lingering spells as well. Meanwhile, there'll be persistent and heavy rain across northern parts of Wales. Further south, things will be turning drier, but it'll still be quite blustery too. Most of the rain will have cleared away from the West Midlands by this evening. There'll be some light rain and cloud for a time, but clearer skies are likely as we head towards midnight. A spell of persistent rain will push through this evening across northeast England. The rain will be heavy at times, but will start to clear as we head into the new year. The wintry showers across northern Scotland will ease this evening, but wet surfaces bring the risk of icy patches overnight. Rain and snow will feed in from the south later on. Now across Northern Ireland, it'll be cloudy at first this evening, but the heavy and persistent rain will arrive, meaning it's set to be wet for most at midnight. Tonight, skies will turn clearer in the south as the band of rain, sleet and snow continues its way northwards. That's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 55 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, there's always something going on in the royal household, and this year has been no exception. And there's no better person to summarise the dramatic year and what we can expect to come in 2023 than royal biographer Angela Levin, who joins me live in the studio. Angela, it's so good to see you.
Very nice to be here.
Lovely. Now, Happy New Year to you. Obviously, we're not quite there, but Happy New Year just
yeah, not long, a few hours.
Not long. So, Angela, it has been a tumultuous year for the royal family. I mean, where do we start? Where do you want to start with?
Well, I think we should start because there's two things. One, we've got a new generation of people, which is, the little ones, who are already learning how to behave. And that will scare Prince Harry very much because he said to me when I was interviewing him for his book, that he has to do an awful lot in a short time because otherwise they will take over. And I think we no longer seem to need Meghan and Harry anymore. And our focus is very much on the young ones. Obviously, they can't do what he could have done, but you see what they've thrown away. They would have been marvellous. They would have been so helpful and created an awful lot of great new things, but they decided not to, and they're full of resentment. And so then now you can see that the king is, and everyone else is slowly, they no longer matter. And I think that's a huge thing that we've come to with this very, very difficult, very busy year. We don't need them anymore.
Well, they've exchanged this, the wonderful stability of the monarchy and the sort of kudos of it for this Hollywood sort of fickle, transient thing, which is celebrity. And that anybody with half a brain would think, I'm going to stay with the other one. It lasts a lot longer.
Before I came in, I watched Live to Lead, which is their documentary on great people, Mandela, Greta Thunberg, all those things. All they are doing is introducing it. They didn't do the interviews. They didn't get it together. They've just paid through Archwell, and they're doing that. And I thought, have you really given up working on a fantastic monarchy, a great queen and a family that would really looked after you, to actually just introduce something? It was very sad. And I think the title Live to Leave is what they'd like, but it's no longer going to happen for them.
No, this is not good. Live to leave is what you said.
Live to leave. Not live to lead, yeah, quite right.
Well, I mean, obviously we've got the book coming now, and for me, I think they've kind of done it. The documentary, that's all. I'm not going to buy the book. I can't be bothered.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to. I will read it for you. Yes, I think it's important to read to see how he's finishing off, because they keep saying this is the last time. Then we're going to make amends. This is the last time. Then we're going to make amends. How can you make amends when you've been so rude? You've called your father the king of the country and the Commonwealth a liar. You've called your brother a bully. You're like a little boy of 5 who says, my brother's bullying me. You know, they haven't been able to see themselves as they should do, to take a step back and not sort of moan and groan endlessly. People are fed up. 6 hours of groaning and crying. It's not going to get you anywhere.
No introspection, was there? There was no looking inwards at what have I done to create this? Where have I gotten wrong? What can I do to repair this?
Yes.
What is my part in this? It was all about, oh, look what you've done to us. It's poor me. It was literally, there was not even the tiniest speck of humility.
No, well, the worst of it all is when Meghan was saying that she was on a flight and someone came to see her, knelt down, took his hat off, knelt down and said, you know, thank you so much for what you've done to the country. He said, there's somebody for all that I'd given up, you know, the only person. It's a bit like saying, how are you? And he did that a few years ago in South Africa. You know, the focus is entirely on her. That would be all right if she also allowed it to expand out.
Well, we need to find the pilot. It's just like we couldn't find the Lion King.
No,
I want to find the
think it is.
Yeah, because it won't be difficult to track because it was one plane.
It was Meghan's truth, that one. Yes.
And finally, the coronation, King Charles, very exciting. I'm looking.
It is very exciting. I think they let slip 2 months ago deliberately that they would cut down and they would understand everybody's going through a difficult time. But really it was to test the water. And everyone says, no, we want it to be fantastic. We're known for that. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And we've now heard that it's going to be absolutely brilliant, but it's going to be shorter, much shorter, maybe 2 hours instead of 6.
Oh.
And far fewer people, 2,000 instead of 10,000. None of that matters, I think. But it's the pageant that goes round it. And I think that we've got a very confident, caring king and a woman who really wants to support him and look after him, but also is a woman in her own right. I think it's a fantastic togetherness. I mean, she slipped off to see some dancing thing with her children.
I know.
And, you know, so she managed to get away to do that. So she's not gone all stately and stuffy.
Well,
but I think that together it'll work very well.
It's going to be great.
And,
it's going to be great.
Of course, Catherine and William are there to support them.
Listen, Angela, the music is here, which means I'm running out of time. Angela Levin, thank you very much for joining me as ever. Royal biographer Angela Levin. This is GB News. More to come in the next hour. So it's just gone 5 o'clock. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio for the next hour. Me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
5:01. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. Pope Francis has spoken publicly for the first time since the death of former Pope Benedict, who passed away this morning, aged 95. The pontiff said his predecessor was a noble, kind man who was a gift to the Church. King Charles has sent his condolences to Pope Francis, recalling Pope Benedict's constant efforts to promote peace and goodwill. Pope Benedict became head of the Catholic Church in 2005. When he stepped down due to ill health in 2013, he became the first pope to do so in 600 years. Pope Francis will lead his funeral on the 5th of January at St. Peter's Square. Well, Associate Editor at the Catholic Herald, Simon Caldwell, spoke to us earlier about Pope Benedict's legacy.
Benedict wasn't going to allow people to come in with all kinds of novelties and revolutionary reforms and this kind of thing. He said, no, this is a sacred deposit. This is something which this is what we hold to be true. And it wasn't that he was against homosexuals or against women or anything like that. He was upholding 2,000 years of Christian teaching and said this is what it means to be a Christian.
4 lionesses who won the Women's Euros earlier this year are among those recognised in the New Year Honours List, the first to be issued by King Charles. Captain Leah Williamson has been made an OBE, whilst Lucy Bronze, Beth Mead and Ellen White have been given MBEs. GB News presenter Anne Diamond has received an OBE for services to public health and charity, and Queen guitarist and animal welfare campaigner Brian May has received a knighthood.
It's a nice surprise to have this honour put upon me. I also think it comes with a responsibility to behave, I guess to continue to behave in a way which benefits the country and the rest of the population here and the world as well. But I take this responsibility quite seriously anyway.
Brian May there speaking about what it means to him to receive that honour. Well, the government has confirmed that anyone travelling directly from China to England from the 5th of January must show a negative COVID test before departure. There are no direct flights from China to Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland, but the government says it will work with devolved administrations to ensure that measures are implemented. It's amid concerns of surging cases in China following an easing of restrictions. France, Spain and the US also have introduced similar rules. Russia's defence ministry says 82 of their soldiers who were captured by Ukraine have been released in the latest prisoner exchange between the two sides. Ukraine is yet to comment on the claims. Meanwhile, the mayor of Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, says 10 explosions have been heard in the city. That's after air raid sirens were sounded in every region of the country. At least one person has been killed. And New Year's celebrations are well underway in many parts of the world. This is the scene live in Bangkok as Thailand becomes the latest country to welcome in 2023, celebrating with a firework display over the famous Wat Arun or Temple of Dawn by the Chao Phraya River. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's get back to Nana Akua.
Good afternoon. If you just joined me, where have you been? This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is broadcaster and author Christine Hamilton and also TV personality Lizzie Cundy. Still to come, we'll have the Great British Debate and we'll be discussing what your New Year's resolutions are and whether they're a waste of time. I'll get the thoughts of my panel and also my great British voices. Then, of course, difficult conversation today. It's about living with diabetes. Chef and author of The Inspired Diabetic, Lyndon Wissard, joins me live in the studio to discuss how he reversed his type 2 diabetes. And as always, I want to hear your opinions, your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Now, of course, as you've been hearing the sad news that former Pope Benedict XVI has sadly passed away, aged 95. He's a German-born theologian. He inherited the throne at the age of 78, but made history in 2013 when he became the first pontiff for 600 years to resign over health concerns. Pope Francis will preside over Benedict's funeral mass in St. Peter's Square on Thursday, an unprecedented event in which a current pope will celebrate the life of his predecessor. Benedict is widely credited with putting his own stamp on the papacy, leading with the pastoral qualities and also uncompromising concern for Catholic orthodoxy, as well as confronting challenges like the priestly child abuse scandal with compassion. Well, I'm delighted now to be joined by former Archbishop of Canterbury, the Most Reverend Dr. Rowan Williams. Welcome on board, Dr. Rowan. Thank you so much for joining me. So what is Pope Benedict's legacy in your view?
Two things in particular, I think. One is, as has already been mentioned, he really did unblock the process of confronting the abuse scandals within the Catholic Church. Obviously, there was more that could have been done at all sorts of points, but he recognised the need for some central, coherent approach to this. He courageously acknowledged the failures of the past. He opened the way for people to be heard in a new depth of seriousness, and I think that's part of his legacy. The other aspect, I think, is simply his skill and genius, I would say, as a teacher. The way in which he communicated his understanding of the Christian and Catholic faith with depth and clarity in a way which I think will last for many generations.
Now, you talked of some of the things that he had to go through during his legacy, but can you tell us a bit more of some of those challenges that he had to face during his time?
The Catholic Church in his day was, I think, already beginning to show some of the signs of the quite deep divisions between left and right within the Church that we see a lot of at the moment. I don't think he wanted to be seen as a party man at all. I think he wanted to be seen as somebody who was serving the entire body of the Catholic Church and somebody who was, above all, committed to bringing people back to the fundamental and central truths of the faith, which, of course, is why he wrote a very highly regarded and very substantial book on Jesus, which not every pope has done in the last few hundred years. So that's I think, part of his own sense of priorities here.
Now, of course, you both led the evensong at Westminster Abbey and prayed before Edward the Confessor's tomb. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
That was a particularly moving and powerful occasion. It was, of course, the first time that a pope had officially visited the United Kingdom, certainly the first time that Pope and Archbishop had stood together at that shrine. And for me, it was a moment of extraordinary depth to be alongside this very, very great, very substantial man and be able to pray together and, if you like, to discover our unity at the deepest level. The fact that we were able to give a blessing side by side from the altar of Westminster Abbey was a great gift, a great experience which I shan't ever forget. And I think during the whole of that visit, he communicated to his audiences, not always very sympathetic audiences in the UK, a sense of pastoral sensitivity, a sense of humanity, which people won't forget in a hurry.
And, I mean, I went to a Catholic school run by nuns, but there was a combination of Catholics and Anglicans. In your view, what do you feel in terms of the future and the relationship between those two sort of sects?
During the time when we both held office, the personal relations were very, very cordial. I would visit him once a year, we'd have a one-to-one conversation, and it was never a difficult or strained thing. We recognized, I think, in each other something of the same kind of commitment, some of the same ideals for the Church. And we were able to start a new round of official dialogue between the Anglican Communion worldwide and the Roman Catholic Church worldwide, which continues to this day. Locally, relations with Roman Catholic bishops in this country were very warm and very trustful. And I think that was part of the deep background of this. So I think that there were some good foundations laid in those days, which I hope will be built on. I can see them being built on now by my successor and Pope Francis.
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining me now, the Most Reverend Dr. Rowan Williams, the former Archbishop of Canterbury. Thank you so much for your time. If you just joined me, welcome on board. This is GB News. It's fast approaching 12 minutes after 5 o'clock. It's time for a great British debate this hour. I'm asking, are New Year's resolutions a waste of time? Now, many of us start the new year with renewed hope and motivation, which some of us channel into the New Year's resolutions. So we promise ourselves that we'll exercise more, we'll learn a new skill, read more, or stop doom scrolling on social media. Same old, same old. And according to recent research, only 8% of people actually manage to stick to their resolutions. So are they a waste of time? So I'm going to ask my panel, what do they think about this? New Year's resolutions, Lizzie Cundy, have you got any?
Well, I never keep them. Yes, I do, but I never. They're always doomed. I always try and do the dry January, which lasts till about the 5th of Jan, and then doesn't. I just don't do very well in them. And I do think they're a bit out of date because there's not many people that really do stick to them. And I think it's much better to do it in small steps, you know. And I have got one just to enjoy the moment because as I'm rushing from one thing to another, I tend sometimes not to enjoy the moment. So that's my sort of resolution. I'm trying to do a different mindset.
Focusing on one thing.
One thing, but small steps, so then it's a bigger cake, and then to share out, if you know what I mean.
Christine, do you have any resolutions?
Oh, yes. Do you? Well, I think New Year resolutions are a good thing. They've been around apparently for about 4,000 years. People have been making them. And I think what's wrong with New Year, new start, a lot of people have had a really bad year. And it's hope, it's optimism, whether it's I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to drink less, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do more exercise, something relatively small. I think there's a feeling of optimism about the new year and what's wrong with making a resolution. But why make a resolution you can't keep? I think that's crazy. You might as well make one you're going to keep. So I have resolved to give up drinking.
No.
Wow! Why?
But I haven't finished.
Oh.
I have resolved
through a straw
to give up drinking between drinks.
Oh, OK. So what do you mean? So you'll have a drink and then...
It means whatever I say it means.
So if you're going to a drink... so if you're going to somebody's drinks event, that day you won't drink, but you'll drink at the drink.
No, it just means I'm going to stop drinking between drinks.
Oh,
like eating between meals.
Drinking between drinks.
Oh, I see. So you have a drink with your meal, you're not going to go and...
It means I'm not going to make any resolutions at all. I don't see...
It means you're going to have a lot of drinks, I think.
No, not more than normal. I mean, I don't drink to excess, so why not? And, you know, I might try and cut... Well, why? I mean, I don't drink to excess, so why not? I enjoy a drink. It makes social occasions more enjoyable. And, you know...
But if they can make you a bit of a better person, I think, if you have this, you know...
and just
to be a bit kinder, a bit more thoughtful, a bit more giving.
Yeah, people don't make their resolution, I will be kinder to other people, do they? They're all rather
less bad-tempered.
I sometimes do stuff like that. I say I'm going to be nice to people. I'm not going to lose my rag so quickly. I'm going to be more patient. There won't be any more road rage at the wheel. I'll count to 10.
Yes. Bring on next year, Nana. It's going to be wonderful.
You were a lot nicer to Danny today. You started early. A lot nicer to Danny. Very nice to Danny.
Well.
But look, it's to make you a better person and improve things you know, from the previous year.
I don't know. I often focus on goals. So I say I want to be doing this, that, and the other. I find myself a billionaire. I do the list.
A good, fine man.
That rolls over the list every year. I've had that on there for a while.
Get a good man.
Billionaire.
But no, I approve of New Year resolutions. I think it's a shame that, did you say 8%? Of people actually keep them. Maybe they set unrealistic goals.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, I'm going to give up drink or Mars bars or whatever their poison happens to be, they just say, I'm going to cut back on my drinking or I'm going to eat fewer. Do
it in baby steps rather than massive big changes that you're never going to be able to do.
You're not going to succeed if you set an unrealistic goal. I mean, you're a human being.
That's what I do. Roll it over like the minutes on your phone. Roll over to the next year. That's
roll over, rock up, and rave on.
But I always look at my New Year's resolutions. I look at them and I think, I do a list. I always
do.
At the end,
you write it down.
Yeah, at the end of my old diary. So the end of this year's diary, I'll write the list. I keep the diary. Then at the end of it, I go back to see if I've achieved them. And usually I've achieved about maybe 6 out of, like I have 10. It'll be 6 out of about 10.
Wow. You've got 10 resolutions?
Well, sometimes I write stuff that I've already done, just so I know I can tick them off.
You see, I say that I am going to do this, and I write it down saying as if I've already done it.
Yeah.
So give it out to the universe. Say, right, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. I'll write it with a candle, fold it over.
Write it with a candle?
No, with a candle lit.
Oh, with a... Sorry,
not with
I thought
no, not old-fashioned. Just write it. I've got a candle light, and then I burn it, and it goes.
I see.
So I've made that.
Then you've burnt the
There's a
evidence.
whole ceremony.
There's a whole ceremony that goes on.
Get yourself a glass of wine.
But it's like putting it out there to the universe that this is happening.
But that also destroys the evidence, so nobody's going to know whether you've actually kept your resolutions.
And how could
so
you
they don't know what they were.
Very clever, very clever, you see.
I see.
I smell a rat.
No, we should put down, I think what we should do is we should write some resolutions for people to hear to see and see if we make them. Not obviously personal ones, but ones that we can see if we generally make them.
OK.
We can come back and let you know. Listen, what are your... If you're watching or listening now, get in touch. What are your New Year's resolutions? We'd love to hear them. And also, what are you doing tonight? New Year's Eve, are you going out? Are you staying in? I mean, it's going to be a stay-in for me. I can't be bothered, frankly. I have memories of one of my New Year's Eves where I was just struggling to get a cab. In the end, I had to walk home. It wasn't fun. But what are you up to for New Year's? Get in touch the usual way. gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Coming up, it is our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, if New Year's resolutions are a waste of time, what do you think? Let me know. I'll get your views and the views of my panellists, Christine Hamilton and also Lizzie Cundy. But first, let's get your latest weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK will be cloudy, wet and blustery for many as rain pushes northwards with some snow. Here are the details. Starting off in the southwest, and by 7 p.m, most of the day's rain will have moved away with clear spells developing. However, don't put away the brolly just yet, as there'll still be some blustery showers. It's a cloudy and windy picture over in the southeast. While much of the rain will have started to clear, there will still be some lingering spells as well. Meanwhile, there'll be persistent and heavy rain across northern parts of Wales. Further south, things will be turning drier, but it'll still be quite blustery too. Most of the rain will have cleared away from the West Midlands by this evening. There'll be some light rain and cloud for a time, but clearer skies are likely as we head towards midnight. A spell of persistent rain will push through this evening across northeast England. The rain will be heavy at times, but will start to clear as we head into the new year. The wintry showers across northern Scotland will ease this evening, but wet surfaces bring the risk of icy patches overnight. Rain and snow will feed in from the south later on. Now across Northern Ireland, it'll be cloudy at first this evening, but the heavy and persistent rain will arrive, meaning it's set to be wet for most at midnight. Tonight, skies will turn clearer in the south as the band of rain, sleet and snow continues its way northwards. That's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television and online, across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Good afternoon. Now it's just coming up to 23 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I am Nana Akua. Now it's time for difficult conversations. Now this man is a professional chef who's had more than 30 years of experience in the industry. He's worked at a range of high-profile restaurants and all across London, including the Savoy Hotel. However, in 2015, he suffered a setback which changed his life. He was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. After just 105 days, though, he managed to reverse the condition naturally, all through willpower to change his eating habits. I'm delighted to say that author and chef Lyndon Wishart joins me live in the studio. Lyndon, nice to see you, man.
Nana, thank you for having me today.
This is the second time I've seen you, but you're looking slimmer even then.
You're looking very well as well, thank you.
Thank you. You're just turning into a husk of your former self. So talk to me, somebody who looks so fit as you, OK, you were a chef.
Yep.
How come you managed to find yourself in a position which type 2 diabetes, which is mostly, as far as we know, it's self-inflicted?
Self-inflicted, yes. Well, I was shocked and surprised, actually, when I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. As a chef, I'm cooking for my clients and you're cooking healthy foods. But the backside of that is when we're cooking healthy foods, we have to taste the sauce several times.
Oh, yeah.
You know, or to certain foods to make sure it's correct for them before we send it to the table.
But you only tasted a little bit, Lyndon. I mean, you're not having the meal.
Yeah, but you're tasting so many other things, or desserts as well.
Oh, yeah.
Main courses. You know, so when I was diagnosed, October 2015, my HbA1c was 92.
What's that, the HbA1c?
The HbA1c is when they monitor your blood glucose level for the last 3 months. And if it's 42 and below, then you're either pre-diabetic or you're not diabetic. And if you're above 42, going on 43, 44, you're diabetic. So I was 92.
Well, what was your weight, though? How was your weight, though? Were you quite overweight? Because you don't look overweight now. You're looking
No, I was getting overweight. I was getting bigger and bigger. My mum told me so as well.
Did she?
Yeah.
Yeah, what'd she say?
My mum's Jamaican, so she told me, Lyndon, your belly's getting real big. So I thought to myself, wow, you know, I got to look
Straight in there, told you
Yeah,
so.
do something about it.
They do that, don't they?
Yeah.
But give me an example, then. So you were getting bigger. Give me an example of your sort of day. As in, what would you eat? Because you obviously...
Well, my day usually started off with 3 slices of bread, hard-dough bread, which is a Jamaican bread and it's a sweet bread. I'll put butter on it.
Yes, good.
I'll put lots of jam on it. Yeah, and I'll have that on my way to work. And then I'll have a latte, a cup of coffee, and I'll put 3 teaspoons to 4 teaspoons of demerara sugar in it.
What?
Brown sugar. And then on top of that, I'll put honey in it as well as a sweetener to help me with my hay fever. So that was my breakfast going to work. Once I got to work, I was working in the pastry section. So we'd have cakes where we got to cut off the ends for the trimmings, and I put all the trimmings into a bowl, and I'll have a cup of tea or coffee again at work, and I'll start eating the trimmings.
Oh, yes.
And the coffee and the tea, so I'll be drinking as well. Lunchtime, we'll have a pasta, rice, potato, or a meat dish, and obviously with a fizzy drink as well. And that was lunchtime. In the afternoon, about 2:30, we'd have tea break again. So with tea break, you can't just have tea by itself. So you got to have some biscuits or cake, you know. So after tea break, I finished work maybe about 4, 5 o'clock. And 4, 5 o'clock, I didn't live in London. So my journey home would be about an hour, hour and a half. So I'd go and get a free meal deal, which would be a chocolate bar, a crisp, and a fizzy drink. So
This is all in one day?
This is all in one day. this is all in one day.
I don't think it's the tasting of the food that makes you put on the weight.
No. It's just an addiction. You just psychologically think like that. So once I got home, my wife would have cooked for me. And because I'm full already, I said to my wife, listen, I'm not going to eat now because I'm full. And she says, is there something wrong with my food? No. So the women put pressure on the men to eat more.
Oh, it's her fault.
So that's your fault.
It's her fault.
It's your fault, yeah. So I've got to eat again. So once I eat again, it's going to be pasta, rice, potato. And on my table, I'll have my favourite drinks, mango juice and ginger beer. You know, so I'll have that. And you know what we guys do after we've had a meal? We just turn the TV on to watch football, but next thing, we're gone to sleep, you know? And the wife would wake me up about 9:30 to go to bed. I said, OK, I'm coming up. And then I'll go to the kitchen, have a cup of tea.
No, it's not even finished then.
It's not finished, yeah. And then we'll have to take 3, 4 biscuits out, have the biscuits with the tea, then go back to the cupboard and say, I just take the whole packet. And that was it.
Never.
You know, so, but this was a regular thing. So as the weight was going on, I had a lot of symptoms as well of diabetes.
Like what?
I had pins and needles in my fingers and my toes. My vision was blurred. I was always tired as well. I was urinating 3, 4 times an hour, easily running to the toilet. And these things, I didn't know what was wrong with me at that time until I was diagnosed. So the day that I was actually diagnosed, I was in the kitchen and there's a chef making all these jokes, but I was working on a recipe. And I was adding up 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 2 is 3, 4 and 4 is 5. It just wasn't working. And this guy called out my name, Lyndon. So I turned around to him and I looked straight into his eyes and I just started to cry. And I ran to the changing room and I fell down. I was crying like a baby.
Why?
You know, because I had so many things going wrong with me over the last year. And as certain men, we don't talk about our issues. So I had all these issues going on with my body. I had blood in my stool. No. I had pains in my stomach. Obviously with the overweight as well. I just couldn't concentrate and I didn't tell no one about it. I was suffering silently for a long time until that day. So the chef said to me, Lyndon, when he came and saw me, said, Lyndon, you do 1 or 2 things. You either go home or you go to the doctors, you know, and see what's wrong with you. So I decided to call the doctor and, you know, I don't know if I was blessed on that day because I rang the doctors. What normally happens when you ring through the doctors, you get an answer machine, a voicemail, but somebody picks up the phone and said, hi, can I help you? I said, wow, I was kind of shocked.
Yeah, well, that'd be very shocking now, I can tell you that.
And I said, well, and I said to myself, OK, can I book an appointment to see the doctor? And you know when they said to come in?
What, today?
5:30 in that day.
Wow.
5:30 in that day.
Unheard of these days.
So I went there.
Lucky.
I went there, got to the doctors. My foot was one foot in, 1 foot out of the door to decide, am I going to see him? Because I know there's things wrong with me, but do I want to face the consequences? And that's where the mental health issue starts to build up in a lot of men.
Isn't it? You don't want to find out what is wrong. You've got to deal with it.
Deal with it. So I was on my way out, then they called my name. So once they called my name, I went in. I told the doctor everything that was about me, what was going on with my body. They done a body check for me. They said, because of my pains in my stomach, they said, we're going to send you to a hospital. So I went to a hospital appointment. They done a pinprick blood glucose check on me. So mine was 15.9 and it should have been 5.
Wow. So you found out you had diabetes.
Yep.
Talk me through. You've got a couple of minutes to tell me, what did you do? How did you manage to reverse it? Because obviously diabetes, we don't cure, but we reverse.
So my mentality was saying, how did I become type 2 diabetic? And it was through my lifestyle, my foods, carbohydrates, pasta, rice, potatoes, my fizzy drinks. So what I decided to do is to cut down on those things straight away. So once I started to cut down on those, I started to go to the gym as well. I started to exercise. And within 25 days, I'd reversed my HbA1c down from 92 down to 77. And continuing that program of what I was doing, and I was intermittently fasting as well, 4 or 5 days a week, meaning that I would not eat anything in the morning. I'll take my daughter to school, and then I'll just go to the gym and just drink water for about 4 or 5 hours. And I'll do that 4 or 5 days a week.
I do that anyway, without even trying.
That's good.
Like I get up, I go to my yoga class, I heat yoga, I don't drink. Because I can't eat, you can't have breakfast before the thing, because otherwise you'll just get heartburn as it comes back.
Yeah.
I drink water during the class, the first time I eat might be midday or after it.
Yeah, so this is what I was doing anyway. But I didn't know what I would...
to do that.
Yeah, but I didn't know about intermittently fasting until I told people about what I was doing.
But it's interesting that people call that intermittent fasting, which is just like a normal thing for a lot of people.
For a lot of people, yeah. But for people like myself, I didn't even know what diabetes was when I was diagnosed. So I didn't have an advantage to say, OK, I'm diabetic, what do I need to do? So I didn't know what diabetes was with all the symptoms. So within another 28 days, my HbA1c went down from 77 down to 60, and within a total of 105 days, I'd reversed it back down to 41, so below that level. Yeah. So I was happy. And when I got down to 60, my HbA1c, that's when I wrote the book.
Yeah.
Started to write the book.
What's the book? And if people want to find out more, because obviously it's the new year,
yeah.
people were thinking, right, I want to try and make sure I don't put myself in a situation of type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
What's the book called? Where can they get it?
The book called Inspired Diabetic, yeah? And it's a journey of how I reversed my type 2 diabetes in 105 days. So it's basically a journey. I got ingredients that I was using before I was eating, during and afterwards, so when I reversed it as well. So I've given the people the opportunity to look at some of the ingredients that I was having, look at my lifestyle that I was having, and a lot of people, they have the same lifestyle as what I had, and I couldn't believe it.
Well, there's a lot of people like that, Linda. Listen, you are a complete inspiration. If people want to get hold of the book, is there a website or somewhere they can go?
Yeah, they can go to my website, theinspireddiabetic.com, and also what I've been doing in this year, connecting with a lot more people, so I'm doing Inspired Diabetic Academy. So if you want to get involved with me throughout the year, go onto my website, sign up to my newsletter, and we keep you up to date with what's coming. And I'm excited for 2023 for a lot of people that want to engage with the Inspired Diabetic.
Well, Linda Wissart, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Fantastic story. If you're needing help for in the new year to try and get yourself nice and fit, and maybe if you're looking at the barrel towards type 2 diabetes, perhaps that's something you might want to check out. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, we'll continue with the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, are New Year's resolutions a waste of time? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Christine Hamilton and Lizzie Cundy. And of course, you at home, please join in. But first, let's get your latest news.
32 minutes past 5. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. Pope Francis has spoken publicly for the first time since the death of former Pope Benedict, who passed away this morning, aged 95. The pontiff said his predecessor was a noble, kind man who was a gift to the Church. King Charles has sent his condolences to Pope Francis, recalling his constant efforts to promote peace and goodwill. Pope Benedict was the head of the Catholic Church from 2005 until his resignation in 2013. He became the first pontiff to step down from the role in 600 years due to ill health. Pope Francis will lead his funeral on the 5th of January at St. Peter's Square. 4 Lionesses who won the Women's Euro 2022 are among those recognised in the New Year honours list, the first to be issued by King Charles. Captain Leah Williamson has been made an OBE, while her teammates Lucy Bronze, Beth Mead and Ellen White have been given MBEs. GB News' very own Anne Diamond has also received an OBE for services to public health and charity, and Queen guitarist Brian May has received a knighthood. The government has confirmed that anyone travelling directly from China to England from the 5th of Jan must show a negative COVID test before departure. There are no direct flights from China to Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland, but the government says it will work with devolved administrations to ensure measures are implemented there as well. It's amid concerns about surging cases in China following an easing of restrictions. France, Spain and the US have also introduced similar rules. And in Yorkshire, Scarborough Council have had to cancel tonight's New Year's Eve celebrations thanks to an unexpected visitor, an Arctic walrus. It's thought to be the first time that one's been spotted in the county. The animal has drawn crowds to the harbour on New Year's Eve. Wildlife experts say he's likely taking a break before continuing his journey north. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're watching GB News. Back to Nana in just a moment.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 39 minutes after 5 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, welcome on board. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Don't forget, you can also stream us live on YouTube. Now, though, it's time to return to the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking if New Year's resolutions are a waste of time. Let's get my panel involved straight away. I've got Christine Hamilton joining me and also Lizzie Cundy. And also at home, listen, if you've got a New Year's resolution, please get in touch. Let us know what your New Year's resolve is and what you're up to this New Year's Eve. Right, Lizzie, New Year's resolutions, are they a waste of time?
Yes, they are.
Really?
Yes. Going from my own experience, I have never get one yet. Honestly, I used to always say, can I get a nice, good boyfriend? I'd always get a real rotter. Don't drink. And then I'd start drinking because everyone says, oh, come on, just one. And then try to be a vegetarian. I miss sausages.
Do you think it's too much? Do you think it's too much all at once? That you've got
and I just think you've got to do baby steps rather than a big change because, you know, I just know I'm not able to do it. But my favourite is Christine's, so I'm going to try her one.
Yes.
Drinking in between drinking.
Giving up drinking between drinks.
That's it.
I like that.
That's good, isn't it?
I don't really drink that much, though.
Made you think when I said it earlier, didn't
work
it?
it out.
You thought, what the hell's she talking about?
Stop drinking between
She's finally given up the...
You see, because some people just graze all the time with eating, you know, in between meals, and I suppose that's what it's be like for drinking.
Seriously, I think New Year resolutions are a good idea because you can start the new year with optimism and hope and a new leaf and try and, you know, make up if you've had any rows with friends and family and goodness knows what. But don't make unrealistic
Yes.
Decisions for yourself.
Exactly, but that's what I say.
If you can't give up drink, don't expect you're going to.
But baby steps, maybe just a little less, eat a little bit more healthier, be a bit less
Tell you what I
bad-tempered.
think people should do. People who drink spirits and anything that is normally measured, when they pour themselves a gin, that's probably a treble or a quadruple gin, and they call it a gin. But if they actually used a measure, a pub measure, they would. Well, it doesn't cover the bottom of the glass.
But I hate it when they do that. Because sometimes when I say, like, I'll have a double Jack Daniels and ginger, which is my tickle. They'll pour it in a thimble, and then and I'm like, hold on a minute. If you're going to pour it in a thimble and measure it, make sure you take it to the top.
Yes.
What's the point of
Yes,
putting it
and
in
you
the
want the meniscus right at the top.
If you're going to measure it and be so nickety-nickety like that, then make sure you fill it up to the top, to the line.
Exactly.
And then they go, oh, as if I'm... But that's, you know...
But sadly, that's what they... I hate it when I ask for a glass of champagne and they fill it only a little way up. And I said, fill it to the brim. I always say, can you fill it up a bit more, please?
Exactly.
It's supposed to be vulgar to fill your glass.
Not real to the top, so it's, you know. But you need one of my... No, you need one of my mum's gin and tonics. That'll knock your socks off.
Well, some people have been sending in their resolutions because I've been asking, are your news, are they a waste of time? Lots of you have been getting in touch with yours. Let's see, Steve says, weight loss ones are for sure. There's a waste of time. Yeah, because...
Good luck, Stephen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Good luck.
Leslie says, the new year is always a good time to re-evaluate life and try to establish better habits. No harm in trying to improve one's health. Just keep it manageable and look at the long-term benefits. It's true, but the results don't come soon enough for some people. They just give up.
Well, it's true, yeah.
Henry says, not in my case, because I don't make them. Good old Henry. And Arthur says there's nothing else to talk about, so people choose platitudes as talking points and stay in the cheering mood. New Year's resolutions are one of those topics.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that. That's very nice. We're in bar humbug, but it is obviously newsy, so we love to talk about what people are resolving this year because we're nosy. But this show's nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome some of our great British voices, their opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they really think about the topics we're discussing today. I have 4. Let's start with Julie Ford in Bedfordshire. Julie, welcome. So, Julie, talk to me. What are your news resolutions?
Hi, Nana. Looking amazing in gold, I have to say. I agree with both of your panellists, actually. I think New Year's resolutions are both a waste of time and the greatest time to start anything new in your life. But it has to be about planning. It's no good, like Lizzie has already said, starting, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to stop drinking, I'm going to go vegetarian. No one's going to achieve all that at the start of the year. Planning is everything. And for me personally, I have little goals that I do all the way through the year, but I also have little treats for myself when I achieve those goals, so then I'm happy when I get there.
I like that, Liz. Did you put little treats in your goals as well?
Yeah, always. I do agree with everything you've said, actually. But one thing I forgot to say that I'm not going to do anymore. Political jokes.
What do you think?
Because too many have been elected already.
Too many... Oh, very good.
No, OK.
Very good, yeah. Was that funny? Julie, it wasn't funny, was it? Let's go. Thank you very much.
No one laughed.
Nobody laughed. There's not a single laugh at all.
She did that one last
Did she?
It is New Year's Eve. I'm trying to get into the spirit of things.
Yeah. Well, let's go to David Barm. He's there in Watford. David, have you sorted out your sound? Talk to us. Have you got any news resolves and what are they, if you've got some?
Hello, Nana. Yes, I hopefully got the sound right today.
Oh, very good.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do, yes, I'm going to continue what I was doing pre-New Year, which is getting fit, ready to run the marathon for the first time at 64 for the Salvation Army. I want the Move for Wellness to reach more people globally because we're helping people live better. And that surely has to be the best resolution I can have. I'm not interested in saying I'm going to give up this and going to give up that because it won't happen. I just want to be positive and enjoy life and see your happy smiley face as many times as you want me on air.
Lovely. See, you're a bit like Christine then, because she's... What was your one, drinking to give up?
Give up drinking between drinks. It's quite simple.
That's it.
That was the proposition, by the way, from Mr. Barham.
Yeah. What was your proposition? Say it again.
To be with you more.
Then be with me more. Yeah, that's creepy. No, I'm joking. No, actually, no, don't be yourself in the corner.
I've obviously known you for a few years, and I would never creep you out. You're just too nice.
No, he's lovely. He's a lovely man. Right, let's go to Brian Dugan. Brian, he's there in Edinburgh, although he moves about a bit. Are you in Edinburgh?
No, I'm in Solihull, Nana.
He's never in the same place. Never in the same place.
I think you've got a twin.
The twin Dugans, the Dugan brothers. Brian, talk to me then. What about your New Year's resolutions? What are they?
Well, I won't detail them just in case that you ask me in a few weeks' time, and you can say that it was a total waste of time. But I tend to think that in general, in the generic, it's kind of a good thing, especially maybe at this time of year when we've probably overindulged, and maybe abstinence is something that should be on the menu. But I think it's kind of a new chapter. It's the turning of a page, and having listened to your suggestion about yoga and all the rest, I think I might go with that as one of my resolutions.
We like it, we like it. And finally, Miranda Richardson, not the Miranda Richardson, but she's there in Northamptonshire. Miranda, your New Year's resolves and your view on New Year's resolutions.
Oh, do you know what, Nana? Oh, I could have a million. I could really reel off loads of New Year's resolutions. But do you know what? It's not about what you believe, because what you believe doesn't make you a better person. No. It's actually your behaviour that makes you a better person. So, I just try and be me every day. I try and be a better version of myself every day. And I've had 4 months in my new pub. I can't wait for this next 12 months. I've got a grip of where I'm going. I want it bigger and better for people. The community I'm in is amazing.
And Miranda,
so, yeah.
Well, good luck with all of your resolves. Thank you so much, my great British voices. They've been fabulous this year. Give them a round of applause. Julie Ford in Bedfordshire, Brian Dugan in Edinburgh. Oh, sorry, let's just change. Dover Brom and Miranda Richardson. Well done to you. Thank you very much for joining me. Happy New Year. Right, it's time now for our quick fire quiz. It's the part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories hitting the headlines right now. Let's hear your buzzers. Christine Hamilton, your buzzer, please. Hold it down. Very good. Lizzie Cundy, your buzzer. Do not buzz in until I've already finished the question. And please play it along at home. Now, remember, as I said, do not press beforehand. Question 1. Love Island fought off tough competition from I'm a Celebrity to receive the most Ofcom complaints in 2022. But how many complaints did Love Island receive on the first episode? Was it 2,648? Was it B, 1,212? Or C, 200?
I'm going to go.
Hang on, was it you or Christine?
2648.
Christine got in first. 2648. And yours, Lizzie?
I was going to go for A.
A. They were going to go for A. It was A. Yeah, you're both right. I'm feeling generous. You pressed at the same time. They'll both get a buzz. They'll both get a point. Well done. Yes, it became the most complained TV show in 2022. Nearly 7,500 complaints during the summer. Right, but the most complained about moment. What about this then? Next, question 2. What was the most streamed song on 2022 according to Spotify? Was it A, Heat Waves by Glass Animals, B, Mi Porto Bonito by Bad Bunny, or C, As It Was by Harry Styles? Oh, I don't know who that was. Lizzie Cundy.
I'm going to go for C, Harry Styles.
C, and you choose one.
I've never heard of any of them, so I'll go for B.
Christine. It's C. It was Harry Styles. 1.2, Lizzie. It's 2-1 at the moment. Harry Styles. His smash hit was As It Was. It was named the UK's most streamed song of 2022. That is according to Spotify. Right, let's go for question 3. What was the most watched Netflix series of 2022?
Oh, you have to. Wait. I thought we had to wait for the.
So sorry.
I'd stopped.
Sorry.
Sorry. Shall we continue?
Sorry, I thought you were going to read.
I wasn't going to.
You buzzed first. I was waiting for the options.
No.
Get them.
All right.
Crown.
Was it A, The Crown? Was it B, Bridgerton, or was it C, Stranger Things?
Oh, I thought I'd already buzzed.
Crown.
The Crown. I hadn't finished the question. She said it's The Crown, Lizzie.
I'm going to go for B, Bridgerton.
B, Bridgerton. It's C, Stranger Things.
I've never heard of Stranger Things.
Whether you buzz it or not.
I've never heard of Stranger Things.
Yeah, season 4 of Stranger Things topped the streamers charts this year after it clocked over 1 billion viewing hours.
Did I watch it? What's it about?
I don't know. I've never watched it. I don't watch that sort of stuff.
So it wasn't
Harry and Meghan. No, not. No, I think they're in the top 20 now.
I wonder if Netflix are kind of wishing they'd never did it to want their money back. Do you reckon?
It was 2-1 to you, Lizzie. I'm going to say congratulations to my panel. Congratulations if you got them right at home. Right. Well, stay with me because, of course, it is New Year's, so I thought I'd finish on a high. I thought I'd talk a bit about GB News because they did try and cancel us before the start, didn't they? Before we'd even broadcast a second, we were called far-right extremists, which the last time I checked don't really like people of colour much, so that seemed pretty odd. They were calling GB News that to my face as well, which was interesting. They said that we'd only last 6 months. Well, it's been over 18. and we are regularly beating Sky News in prime time and often beating them in parts of this show. So I've put together a montage of my top 3 monologues and some fun moments on the channel to remind you of what a year it's been. So let's start at number 3, my takedown of our dear friend Gary Lineker. Now, I simply couldn't let this one go. Some people regard him as one of the greatest strikers of all time. Our dear friend Gary Lineker. I loved him when I was younger. I thought he was amazing. But that was because he kicked a ball about. He never actually opened his mouth. Because when he does, the most nonsensical, hypocritical tosh escapes from it. And I'm beginning to think he doesn't really know it's happening and it's just spewing uncontrollably. Now, I ignored Gary because that is usually the best thing to do. But I'm afraid I couldn't let this one go. In his latest gaffe, he claims because of his darker skin, he's experienced racism. I almost choked on my drink. I bet he wished I had, because I wouldn't be around to point out how ludicrous that sounds. Can I get a split screen with Gary, please? I'm black, Gary. You're white. Your comments trivialise the experience of racism that people of colour like me go through. May I suggest, Gary, that you stick to things you know, like promoting unhealthy food and tossing a ball. At number 2,
Brilliant.
the self-obsessed Meghan Markle and her Arsewipes podcast. God, she's still banging on in her Archetypes podcast. In the latest edition, Breaking Down the Bimbo, where she talks to Paris Hilton about being an archetypal bimbo, Meghan Markle claims that she was objectified when she was on Deal or No Deal. She said, I ended up quitting the show. I was so much more than what was being objectified on the stage. I didn't like feeling forced to be all looks and little substance. The role was about looking good and just opening a box. I mean, if you felt that strongly about it, you didn't have to do it. And in fact, in Suits, which pays pretty well in comparison to most jobs, you acted out some pretty steamy sex scenes. And a former Deal or No Deal colleague, Patricia Cara, spoke to Inside Edition, and she said she doesn't actually recall ever feeling that way during work. Whoopi Goldberg also criticised Meghan's comments. The Duchess revealed that there were different beauty stations to prepare for the game show, including a section where you can add padding in your bra. Yet Clara claimed there were no bra stations. There was no bra station. And of course, at number 1, Ngozi Fulani. Where do we start? This woman, Ngozi Fulani, which isn't her real name, by the way, it's actually Marlene Headley, went to the palace event dressed like this. Now, forget where do you come from in Africa, more like what planet? What is going on with her hair? I mean, seriously, I've got some bad wigs that I wear on purpose, by the way, to get a reaction. That is another level. This is what it says on the charity's Facebook page. Sister Space is a safe venue dedicated to African and Caribbean victims/survivors of domestic and sexual abuse, and is staffed and managed by volunteers. Can you imagine if the charity said only white people? I bet she'd be the first to complain. Let me see. I go to the charity, her charity. They ask me where I'm from. I say Newcastle. They ask me again. I say from GB News. Then they ask me, no, what part of Africa? I say they didn't keep a record. I'm guessing at that point she'll tell me to clear off. I wonder how many traumatised women she's turned away who don't meet her criteria. Frankly, I'm embarrassed about this woman. She's affiliated with the Black Lives Matter movement, a bunch of fraudsters who played on white guilt to extort money from the generous, trusting nature of most people, the majority of whom are not racist, and in my view, manipulating a conversation to suit her own ends at the expense of an old woman. And Ngozi Fulani is a complete and utter hypocrite.
Well done.
And we've had some fun with
Bravo, Nana. Bravo.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done, my friend.
You shoot from the hip. You say it like
somebody had to tell her.
Gary Lineker won, though, for me.
Well, listen, we've had some fun as well with my excellent panellists. Danny, I'm going to start with you then.
Why, thank you.
You're lucky that Sam didn't kiss you on the lips.
Yes, this
he kissed Calvin on the lips by accident.
I'm glad I missed this. This involved a moment with Father... Yes, but Father Calvin Robinson, of all people.
I know, and you kissed him on the lips. Oh, God.
The holy water's bubbling as we speak.
Praise be. But what if he'd done that to you by accident, Danny?
Oh, he'd have got a headbutt. He'd have got we call it in Liverpool a Kirby kiss.
They're having a problem with it.
It's noble aspirations, but my worry is that actually you turn public opinion against you because you're stopping people getting about their ordinary work. Ambulances have been turned around, fire engines have been turned around, people who are self-employed can't get to work. It's causing huge disruption. You've got to take people with you, and you're not. You're alienating them.
I understand, and we absolutely...
No, you don't, because you keep doing it.
No, we feel we have no choice. We absolutely hate disrupting people.
No, you don't.
We do.
That's why you do it.
No, we do.
That's why you do it.
You
do it specifically to disrupt people. That's why you do it.
And I'm actually boiling about this. I'm bubbling like a vindaloo with extra chilli sauce on. I really am. I am so angry at this man. Yeah. He would not let it go. The self-righteous hypocrite, and I'm sorry, now he needs to go.
Well, it is clear what...
No, I know it was you.
Well, listen, it's clear why those in the established media are scared, because until GBNews came along, it felt like this country was heading down a very dark path where opinion was being stifled. Dare you point out a different perspective, you'd be vilified, called a name and cancelled or fired. It's no surprise that many of our young people are intolerant and can't handle free speech. I don't want to live in a country where you can't say a biological man is a man and a biological woman is a woman. No amount of cosmetic surgery can change that fact. I should be allowed to say that without being called a transphobe. Why? Because that's the truth. We don't all want to live in a world that panders to delusion, a world where you can't weigh up the benefit against the potential damage caused by things like vaccines, or one where you can't question the science behind climate change and the effectiveness of policies that are supposedly taking us to net zero. It's been a blast. Thank you very much to my wonderful panellists. Thank you so much to you at home for joining in. Let's do it all over again in 2023. I'll see you tomorrow. That's next year. Woo! Happy New Year!
Yeah!
Hey!
Well done!
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Good evening and welcome to a special Hogmanay edition of Neil Oliver Live. I'm Emily Carver and I'm in the GB News studio in London. But more than 400 miles away in Stirling is the great man himself, Neil. Hi, Neil. Neil will be with us until 8 o'clock. And if you're still stuck for a New Year's resolution, he's on hand to provide a little bit of inspiration. Coming up tonight, we'll meet an inspirational young campaigner who is challenging our panel and you at home to make a special act of kindness every day. You'll also get the least boring political review on the telly as we look back on a whirlwind year inside Westminster. Plus, Neil and I will speak to a genuine expert on how to keep your New Year's resolution. I can't even remember what mine was last year, actually. Well, perhaps I can remember in the break. And what is your New Year's tipple? Is it a classic malt, like Neil, or something a bit more adventurous? To round off the show, we'll have a cocktail tasting session. I'm looking forward to that, live in the studio, to pick the ultimate beverage for bringing in the bells. All of that and more coming up between now and 8 o'clock. You'll not want to miss it, but before we hear from Neil, let's get an update on the latest news headlines from Ray Addison.
Thanks, Emily. Here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. Pope Francis has spoken publicly for the first time since the death of former Pope Benedict, who passed away this morning, aged 95. The pontiff said his predecessor was a noble, kind man who was a gift to the Church. King Charles has sent his condolences to Pope Francis, recalling Pope Benedict's constant efforts to promote peace and goodwill. Pope Benedict became head of the Catholic Church in 2005. When he stepped down due to ill health in 2013, he became the first pope to do so in 600 years. Former Archbishop of Canterbury, the Most Reverend Dr. Rowan Williams, spoke to us about Pope Benedict's visit to the United Kingdom.
The first time that a pope had officially visited the United Kingdom, certainly the first time that Pope and Archbishop had stood together at that shrine. And for me, it was a moment of extraordinary depth to be alongside this very, very great, very substantial man and be able to pray together. And, if you like, to discover our unity at the deepest level.
4 Lionesses who won the Women's Euros earlier this year are among those recognised in the New Year Honours List, the first to be issued by King Charles. Captain Leah Williamson has been made an OBE, whilst Lucy Bronze, Beth Mead and Ellen White have all been given MBEs. GB News' very own presenter Anne Diamond has received an OBE for services to public health and charity, and Queen guitarist and animal welfare campaigner Brian May has received a knighthood.
It's a nice surprise to have this honour put upon me. I also think it comes with a responsibility to behave, well, I guess to continue to behave in a way which benefits the country and the rest of the population here and the world as well, you know. But I take this responsibility quite seriously anyway.
The government has confirmed that anyone travelling directly from China to England from the 5th of January must show a negative COVID test before departure. There are no direct flights from China to Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland, but the government says it will work with devolved administrations to ensure measures are implemented there too. It's amid concerns of surging cases in China following an easing of restrictions there. France, Spain and the US have also introduced similar rules. Russia's defence ministry says 82 of their soldiers who were captured by Ukraine have now been released in the latest prisoner exchange between the two sides. Ukraine is yet to comment on those claims. Meanwhile, the mayor of Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, says 10 explosions have been heard in the city. That's after air raid sirens were sounded in every region of the country. At least one person was killed. And in Yorkshire, Scarborough Council have been forced to cancel tonight's New Year's Eve celebrations thanks to an unexpected visitor, an Arctic walrus. It's thought to be the first time that one has been spotted in the county. The animal has drawn crowds to the harbour on New Year's Eve, wildlife experts saying he's likely taking a bit of a break before continuing his journey north. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're watching GB News. Back now to Emily.
New Year incoming, and still we're being beaten around the head with the same old stories. In a few hours we welcome 2023, but as far as our leaders and their lackeys are concerned, it might as well be Groundhog Day. I look at the headlines on this last day of 2022 and what do I see? COVID, Ukraine and climate change. Folk nuttier than anything found in a selection box are talking about bringing back face masks. God help us, everyone. Let's remind everyone for the umpteenth time that COVID is now no more dangerous to most than the common cold, but still the talk is of the pandemic. Same old, same old. I speak to people every day and hear real stories about real struggles. At first, when asked how are things, most smile and say they're fine. Spend a few minutes in conversation though, and the stories come. Real fears about making ends meet, keeping jobs, keeping homes, businesses, the dreadful emotional toll on children. So much of the suffering on account of our leaders prioritising everyone other than the people born and bred and living here today. Uncounted numbers of the people of Great Britain are cold and hungry in their homes, without access to GP and hospital appointments, while billions of pounds are sent out of the country. Workers of all sorts are striking for better pay and being pilloried by the same media that just as enthusiastically held them up as saints. The very people we were encouraged to regard as heroes 5 minutes ago, nurses, delivery drivers, postal workers, supermarket workers, and others who remained at the coalface of working life while millions were told to stay at home in their pyjamas, are now being maligned as virtual enemies of the state for having the temerity to ask for better pay and conditions. All of it in the midst of a cost of lockdown crisis created and inflicted by politicians more interested in the bankers, the markets and the corporations than the plight of the very people they are elected to serve. A blatant exercise in dividing the population yet further, keeping us at each other's throats and too distracted to raise our heads and see the travesty of leadership all around. If they can't split us up on the grounds of race or sex, then they seek to sow division among the working people. Divide and rule, another story so old the pages are falling out of the book, while the real stories are largely ignored. Uncounted numbers of the put-upon people of Great Britain, young and old, fit and infirm, are dying of causes unrelated